Hello and a warm welcome to round 3 of the DWREC Championship. Today we're at the home of British motorsport, the legendary Silverstone Circuit, a track steeped in history, built on speed, rhythm and pure racing heritage. But there's another factor lurking today. A 30% chance of rain is hanging in the air. The clouds overhead could stay polite or turn this race on its head in an instant. Drivers and strategists will be glancing at the radar as much as the climbing streams, because if the heavens open, anything could happen. From the launch into Abbey through the majestic sweep of Maggotts and Becketts and down the Hangar Straight, where slipstream battles become wheel-to-wheel warfare. Silverstone always delivers action. It's fast, it's flowing, and if the track gets damp, it becomes a tightrope walk. The championship story is for sure taking place, momentum building, and today could be pivotal. Strategy calls, tyres, bravery, they could decide everything. Especially if the rain starts to fall. So buckle up, settle in, and get ready, because round 3 at Silverstone is moments from ignition, and with weather in the mix, it could be absolutely electric. As always, I am joined by my co-host Zach. Zach, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good, Lewis. Looking forward to some exciting racing today.
Absolutely. Let us, before we have a look at the championship this evening, let us just remind ourselves of the race format that we're going to be taking on. We are, of course, just finishing up practice 2 now before heading into a 15 minutes, 3-lap solo qualifying before a 2-hour endurance race. See the points format on the right-hand side there, and certainly few drivers than earlier in the season have turned up so far, so some big points just for turning up today. As I mentioned during the intro, we are looking at a moderately cloudy but dry qualifying, but we have an ever-increasing chance of rain as the race begins, starting as low as 3%, going to about 15 halfway through, and 30% by the time we get to the end of the race. So there's a pretty good chance of some sort of shower, even if it doesn't force people on to the wets. Now, let's head back and have a quick look at our championship standings before we get underway today. Hopefully that's the right button. It is indeed. Starting off with the Pro class, always delivering some high-intensity racing. David Chilling leads the way in a commanding position with a bit of a points cushion, but not a secure one. Behind him, Robin Wist and Joe Harrison are in a deadlock fight for second, with just 1 point separating them, proving they've got the consistency to challenge over a season. Stephen Norrie sits close behind to threaten, while Stewart and Peace are tied together like magnets in the standing. And we're going to see how that evolves as the season continues. G, Critchell and Mats all quick enough to get up the order, but definitely in need of a bit of a swing of momentum for them. A podium could put them back into tension, and a DNF could certainly put them into damage control. Moving on now, let's have a look at the Pro-Am standings, and it's Timo Gartner who leads the way. His advantage, though, isn't insurmountable, with Ian Kennigan 21 points behind, closely followed by Jeffrey Damon and João Costa, who all could very much get in that championship fight. In the midfield, it's looking like a volatile pocket in the championship. Sebastian, Felix, and Richard all have speed and aggression and need to harness some consistency to get back up towards the top of the standings. Now, if we have a little look, if we go through the drivers in Pro, and they're not sure what's happening with the standings. There's a clear leader right now out front in Michael Rhodes, 24-point gap to Andy Keane. But the real danger comes from slightly further back. Keane and JT Sawyer are delivering some early pace, but haven't shown the consistency to get up there. Further back, the pack is quite unpredictable, and They're all capable of podium place, but they haven't yet turned their flashes into results. Of course, as I mentioned, we have the chance of rain today, and that could very much upset the standings of what everyone has seen earlier in the season. Zach, how do you feel about some rain falling on this circuit?
30% chance in iRacing can go one way or the other. I'm hoping we get a little bit of rain, though. Maybe make some things a little bit more exciting.
Absolutely, and we have checked the radar screens before we came live today, and it looks like it's consistently on there. About an hour in the race, we're looking at a 30% chance of rain. We're going to have to keep our eyes on that one for sure, as the final 2 minutes of practice do come underway. Let's just have a little look at the circuit if you are unfamiliar. Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, of course, host to the Formula One race every July. Looking at 5.8 kilometers with 18 turns, only 147 meters above speed level, so nothing to worry about there. Currently, we've got a track temp of 36 degrees Celsius with an air temp of 22. So it is the heat from that sun that is kind of heating up the track rather than the air. So that will fall quite rapidly, as predicted the clouds to roll in, and also for a bit of rain on the circuit. As you can see, a 64% humidity doesn't really lean itself either way to whether it's going to rain just yet. Looking at a bit of a shortened field today, some good points positions on the way for anyone who really turns up to this race. Zach, what do you think that's going to do in the championship?
I think it'll be kind of interesting. It looks like a lot of our higher place drivers are attending today, but it'll be interesting to see. It doesn't look like Steven Navori is going to show up, so we'll see what that does to the standings at the end of the race.
Absolutely. Looking like we've only got 4 drivers in that pro class thus far. Most competitive looking in the Pro-Am class with 8 drivers. Been a busy class this season. About an average attendance of 6 or so in the Am class for sure. So there's still going to be plenty of cars on track, looking like as we while down the last 30 seconds of practice or so, that we're going to be looking at just over 20 of them. Now, here's one man who will be hoping to move himself up the championship order. It's going to be Andy Keane. He's currently driving around with a black flag. I can only assume that that has come from the pit exit. Of course, Silverstone here has one of the most interesting pit lanes in the calendar, where you essentially cut out the last few turns and cut out the first corner. So it's going to be very interesting to see when people pit, especially if they have to come in for that longer pit stop for their rain tyres. Checkered flag falls on practice then, just waiting for the final drivers to get ready before we head into qualifying. And you can see the shift there of the clouds coming over the circuit. It looks like some pretty dark clouds on the horizon if the wind is heading in the right direction. And we wait for our first driver to head out on the track. And so far, no one taking the plunge. Just as I say that, Jeffrey Damon and JT Sawyer head out onto the circuit and out of that pit lane.
Looking at the weather radar, it's looking like the chance of rain dropped a little bit for noon, but we're up to a 52% at 12:15 and a 57% at 12:30. So it's looking more like later in the race we might see a little bit of rain coming onto the track.
Now, that could be quite interesting, of course, because you're kind of imagining everyone would have done all of their pit stops by that point, and you're going to end up with people maybe taking a gamble to stay out on dries as long as they can, especially if it's a light shower, and it could certainly mix up all sorts of interesting calls to come. And that track temperature still staying solid at 32 degrees. Those who have set their car up for a warmer track will certainly be disappointed if it gets colder later in the race, and we could see the field really change, as we see Jeffrey Damon is trying quite hard as he approaches Maggotts and Becketts to get his Mercedes tyres nice and warm. Normally, not so much of a problem around this circuit, but of course, the recent iRacing tyre update means they come out of the pits icy cold, and you've only got 3 laps. And you don't want to either spin and waste one of them, or have 2 cold tyres by the end of them to actually do a representative lap time. Do find interesting, Timo Gartner is still in the pits, Michael Rhodes still in the pits. They're biding their time a little bit, potentially waiting for a bit of cloud cover to come over to cool that track down for a bit more grip once their tyres are up to temperature. But for now, let us ride on board with Jeffrey Damon as we take a lap round this Silverstone Circuit. Coming down on the fast section. It's fast in a Formula 1 car, it's fast in a GT3 car, but you do have to lift slightly on those cold tyres as we head down into the 3, 4, 5 complex. Heading for that apex on the inside. You want to run a bit wider, but you need to get yourself back over for that tight apex, and it just looks so heavy through there on some cold tyres as we head down the straight here. It's looking like a steady but careful lap so far for Jeffrey, just to get a time on the board. Ooh, you can hear those tyres squeal as he actually has to save it from going over track limits. Of course, he sets the fastest sector overall of all classes, but he was the first out. But interestingly, he's gone faster than Stewart in the Pro class.
I think another interesting one to keep an eye on in this race is actually going to be Alexander Drake. It looks like he made the choice to take the point penalty, get himself out of that Lambo and into a McLaren, which I know he's more comfortable in.
That is an interesting evolution as we are halfway through the season. The Lamborghini has certainly not really done anyone any favours, and not very many cars who have had success with it. Heading up the hangar straight now towards the end of the lap before we head into Stowe Corner and down to Club. Keeping it nice and tight on the inside. Certainly not going to be Jeffrey's fastest lap of the day, but if he is able to get that tyre temperature, we should see the next 2 really speed up. So I think he might be the first driver to cross the line. And it's going to be a 2:01.919, fastest in his class, fastest overall right now, because no one else, apart from JT Sawyer, who just set a 2:03, has set a time. And as we say that, Robin Wist comes in with a 2:07, and Stewart 8 tenths behind him. That is quite the gap. As we see Heinrichs there in the 2:93, 10 seconds down. Something tells me he had a bit of an incident on that lap. And the 17 machine comes ahead of the 7 in Felix Mexner, up and mixing in that Pro class. Let's see what everyone else can do. Jeffrey Damon has set the fastest first sector of his class. JT Sawyer has set the fastest first sector of his class, but heading fastest right now is Thomas Critchell, fastest first sector of anybody, as we head down here, heading down towards Copse. And how much do you want to risk it for track limits on the outside? It looks like Tom is actually playing it nice and safe as we head through Maggotts and Becketts. What is his second sector going to look like? Is he going to set the timing boards alight like he did with his first sector? And he did. Scarily similar times there for the first and second sector, a 39.7 and a 39.1. Let's see how his third sector compares, but I think he might be heading on to quite a fast lap here. No one else on the track seems to be going faster than him right now. Of course, he missed that round in Germany at the Nürburgring, so he has some points to make up for sure as we head down now into club. Nice technical little section to finish the lap. Out on the curb there. What's Tom going to be able to do as he comes across the line? It's going to be a 1:59.3, and that puts him a second clear of his next competitor. That's quite a lap from Tom.
It's looking really good out there.
Absolutely. If we look at the rest of the grid, it's our 3 pro drivers who head up the top 3 overall. Oh, and that's Tom, well and truly off the road. And I think he's given up on his qualifying attempt with that.
He's taking the scenic route.
Absolutely. He's taking us on a little tour of the back roads of the circuit before the stewards say, no, you can make your way back to the pits. Stefan Heinrich here.
Sometimes you got to get some of that aggression out right before the race starts.
Absolutely. He's going to be hoping that 1:59.3 stands for the fastest time overall. No one improving on it so far. Stefan Heinrich looks like he might be struggling a little bit here. He is the last of our drivers to set a time. Alexander Drake, who you mentioned earlier, is the second last and might have actually had an incident on that last lap because he is improving in his first sector. Jeffrey Damon now has set the fastest middle sector of his class, and JT Sawyer looks like he so far is the one in command of the AM class. Let us ride on board once more with Jeffrey here. And his competitor behind in the 47 machine is not improved on his personal best for the second sector, so this could be very interesting indeed for this Pro-Am class. Always the spiciest battles. Phil Bauer across the line to go P5 overall. Felix Metzner's in the pit, and Jeffrey Damon by 0.4 of a second goes into P4 and crucially P1 of that Pro-Am class as he pulls over to the side of the road, as does JT Sawyer, thinking that he is done with this race, who hasn't set a lap time yet. Timo Gartner, Michael Rhodes, David Schling is quite the surprise there, as he has been the fastest car, but he's not setting the fastest lap so far. What does Michael Rhodes do? Only best for 11th, now 12th overall. And for the guy who has been leading this AM class, he hasn't set the time to light in his first run. And even more interestingly, Timo Gartner, who has been far and ahead fastest in that Pro-Am class, only P9 overall right now.
I think it'll be interesting to see how many drivers are comfortable with this track. Maybe some didn't get enough practice in, or maybe some are just more familiar. It's a little bit more of a comfortable circuit. They've been doing it for a while, so they might get a little bit more speed out of it.
Indeed. Well, Michael Rhodes is improving on his time. David in the 5:13 here has shown up to this round, and he has challenged Tom Critchell by being 0.3 off the pace. And I notice that Tom has come on an outlap, and he might feel a bit threatened now that David is setting times almost as quick as his.
Maybe
Costa,
not feeling quite as comfortable as he was when he took that first round.
Absolutely. Costa goes P9 overall. We're just waiting on 2 more drivers to actually set a time. A new entry for this round. Walter in the 59 machine. Let's go have a look. It is a Porsche in the beautiful DWR purple livery. How is his first sector of what I believe to be his first lap going to fare with 4 minutes remaining in the session? He is going to really have to go if he's going to want to move forward and get all of his laps in. Richard in the 966 has just set the fastest first sector for that AM class, and Michael Rhodes sets the fastest second sector as David sets the fastest second sector overall. He may well be challenging for Tom Critchell, who has come back into the pit lane now, and for that pole position. Let's see what he can do as we head into the end of this lap here, heading past the pit entry and into club corner. for what I think to be his second to last lap in this session. Still some time to improve. Hasn't set the fastest first sector, but it was a personal best. And I think that middle sector is only just faster than Thomas Critchell. He crosses the line and he goes pole by 3/100ths of a second. I think we're on for a spicy fight in that pro class today, Zach.
And for only 4 drivers, I think they're going to make it look pretty good out there.
Absolutely. Of course, they're all going around and there's no obligation to get out of the way for anybody else in this race. So it is going to be 18 cars who are all battling for position, just not for points. Only one car now, as I said, the number 59, left to set a lap time. I think he might have just come across the start-finish line, but actually failed to set a time. So I assume that that lap time got invalidated, and the pressure is now on for the 59 Porsche to set a lap time and not be starting at the back of the grid, because he is not going to have time left to complete another lap past this one. So let's have a look. We've seen mid-30s for the first sector, and this is looking like, sorry, my apologies, not 30s, 37s for the first sector. And that's a 40.45, so he's certainly not on lightning pace, and I think he might have given up on this lap and is going to start at the back.
Doesn't look like he was too happy with that first sector time there.
Absolutely not. Have we still got left on track? Michael Rhodes here, who's coming through the last corner. He set the fastest first sector. An average middle sector. Does he move up the order at all? Yes, he does. Goes P2. Just behind by less than a tenth of a second behind that 966 car. And David, he's given up. There's no one to challenge him. Phil Bauer, who, of course, had that horrible spin at the end of that last round out in the Nürburgring, is still going round with 1 minute 26 on the clock. More than enough time. Timo Gartner heads back to the pits. So there's only one car on track who can improve right now. Phil, a 40.0 in the first sector, a 39.3, not even a personal best in the middle sector, hoping that he can move up that order. It might not be pole, but he might be able to get in front of the P3 in that class of Jeffrey Damon. And no, he's pulled over to the edge of the track and decided he wants no more part in this qualifying session. Interesting one there. Quite a few drivers just pulled over at the end. I'm pretty sure that he had time to get to the line, but obviously didn't feel like the lap was good enough to go to the line. Because they all sit in the pit lane and we have an empty track to watch for 30 seconds.
It's looking like we're going to have a couple surprises today. I was talking about Alex Drake and his car change, and looking at his times, it might have been a good choice. He's got that P1 in the Pro-Am class, so we'll see if he's going to be able to hold on to it with this new choice.
Absolutely, but he's only clear from Samuel by less than a tenth of a second. There's going to be a challenge on there, I think, as we head into turn 1. And all of our classes actually have less than a tenth of a second separating their pole times. That is going to be an interesting battle for each lead of each class in turn. As we can see, darkness falling over the circuit. I think that cloud cover is coming over now. So let's look at the starting grid. It's David Schilling who starts P1, Thomas Critchell P2, just behind him by less than a tenth of a second. In P3, it's Robin Wist, and in P4, it's going to be Stuart, who is going to be charging against Robin with that small gap, as I mentioned. Alex Drake takes P1 for the Pro-Am class in P5 overall, with Samuel Garrett just behind him in P6 and P2 of that class. P7 makes up P3 of our Pro-Am class, Jeffrey Damon, and then Phil Bauer, who makes up P8. Looking a bit further down, Timo Gartner, the dominant victor of our last 2 rounds, starts in P9, and Costa starts in P number 10. Having a look now, we're seeing the start of our AM class, P12 for Richard Neves, and Felix Mexner is last of the Pro-Am in P11. Michael Rhodes starts P13, P52 in the AM class, and P14 for JT Sawyer right in behind him. Then it's going to be Andy Keane and Garcia making up P15 and P16 before we head to the last row of the grid, who's going to be Heinrich and then Walter from the Pro-Am class, who did not set a qualifying time and is going to have to start all the way back in that pack. Let us check before this race gets underway. Zach, can you tell us anything about the weather?
It's looking like the chances dropped a little more. 12:15 into 12:30, we've got a 25% to a 34% chance. But looking in closer at 12:45 to 1 p.m., it starts to go up again at 39% and then a 59% chance. So it does look like it's pushing away. I'll keep an eye on the track and let you know if any of that changes.
Absolutely. What some rain some drivers would wish for and some would absolutely hate for in this race. Now the countdown has hit 0, but David is not on pole position. That is an interesting call if I've ever seen one. I assume he's going to start from the pit lane or has had some sort of technical issue, but that makes Tom Critchell the new leader of this race and the leader of the pro class as well. As we see them pull into the pit lane and get ready for this race to begin. Watching Thomas Critchell, that red sim coach car in the front of your picture there, with Robin Wist and Stewart behind him as they line up 2 by 2, waiting for that green flag so they can go. We're waiting. And it's green flag as we've lost our overlays there. Apologies for that. But we are getting racing in Silverstone as we head through turn 1, and it all looks like they are going pretty nicely indeed. And Tom Critchell makes it out in P1 and is going to be loving that indeed.
I can confirm it does look like David Schilling had some PC problems, and that's why he was not able to start that race with us.
Well, he is out on the track, 5 seconds down on the lead now. Looks like everyone's made it through reasonably cleanly. Simon Garrett's got a slowed down penalty, but other than that, they all look to be doing pretty nicely indeed, as we've got our overlays back so we can actually see what is happening in this race. Let's have a look overall. Alexander Drake, you were saying, had a car change. He's got in front of Stewart in the pro class and starting to pull away from him. That is quite the success for his car change, if I could ever say there was one. Still watching Thomas Critchell here as he establishes a 0.6 of a second gap into the lead as he drops out for us very briefly, but he's back now, so all is good. And David is down in P14, and Richard Neves is either disconnected or given up already.
It looks like we had a couple little lap 1 incidents there that might have thrown some of the drivers off.
My apologies, it looks like we're having some connection issues to the session, which is maybe why some drivers are dropping out there. Richard is back in the race and leading that AM class. Something certainly happened at the back there, because Neves and Rhodes are well in front of the Pro-Am field.
Yeah, it looks like we had a couple spinners going into turn 1 and a couple little bumps and rubs. I'm wondering if we might be having a couple reviews there at the end of this race by the stewards.
Absolutely. I am seeing quite the list of incidents that are happening on my display here. Let's have a look at what's happening with Phil Bauer down in P11 overall, challenging Phoenix Mexner and getting mighty close to him to turn 1. Felix is defending as we go through there, around the outside, and it doesn't look like he's going to make anything worse. Walter, who didn't set a lap time, is up in P9 already. That is quite the gain from lap 1.
Think he might have gotten a little lucky with some of those incidents up front. He was able to keep himself clean and able to drive around a couple people and get himself some of those positions.
Absolutely. Looks like he might be holding up Felix Mexner through that turn there, but nowhere for really anyone to go, as let's follow them round as we head onto the old pit straight here. They're stringing out a little bit. You can see Michael Rhodes right at the front in that yellow and red car, and they are certainly going to be held up a little bit, I think, by the AM class driver. He's now dropped back, and that's quite wide. Not sure if he'll be getting an off track for that, but it wasn't looking like it was particularly within track limits, and it looks like he's actually got a little bit of damage to the front of that Porsche there, as now he really does have Phil Bauer gaining on the back of him down the straight. Is he going to make a move as we head down? He's getting closer, but he also has a bit of damage to the front of his Ferrari, so I think he's just sticking behind for now, or is he looking around the outside, but there's nowhere to go. And JT Sawyer, who's behind them, has gotten a slow down penalty. You can see that red DWR car in the background. He is going to lose even more time as he's kind of making up that secondary pack there. Having a look at the start, Zach, there's been some very clear winners and losers. Obviously, David having some PC issues. But if we're having a look at who's kind of really lost from position, you have to say Jeffrey Damon down in P17 and Costa in 18. It has not gone well for them at all.
Yep, it definitely looks like on that opening lap in those forced corners, things got a little tight. It looks like Yao got bumped a little bit and took a little spin around. And then we've got Jeffrey Damon, who looks like he was on the unfortunate end of a T1 exit.
Yeah,
and got himself a little spin around as well.
We will have a little look back at those incidents once we have got through the crazy stage of this start. We've still got quite a few cars coming through here, and David Schilling is making his way up on Michael Rhodes. Of course, not fighting for position, and quite the pace difference between the classes as well. Seems like he's just let him through, and that may well be to Michael Rhodes' advantage, because now he can use a little bit of the slipstream from the 5-1-3 in front, and also maybe try and use some of his lines, but that's not going to help as he kind of goes a bit wide, and it looks a little bit horrible to get out of Maggotts and Becketts, and he has dropped 8/10 back now, and doesn't seem to be gaining it particularly quickly as we head down the straight. And he has Felix Mexner for company right behind him, who will be wanting past him pretty quickly, as we see David makes another overtake past the 59 car and is heading his way up towards the front of that pack, as we might have expected.
You know, he's going to be in a little bit of a rush to get caught back up to the people that he was racing with. He had the fastest time along with Tom by quite a bit, so it'll be interesting to see how quick he can make those positions up and if he can bring that fight back to that front pack and get himself some points today.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, only 4 of the Pro Class drivers are actually with us this evening. So he's guaranteed to gain some good points as long as he stays in the race. But of course, he will want as many as possible in that championship fight. There is quite the difference to come from a P1 versus a P4. Felix there having a little look on Mike Rhodes, but going nowhere just now. And it is backing him up quite heavily into Phil Bauer. And he is going to want to get Michael Rhodes out of the way as quickly as possible. Otherwise, Phil might make a send on him. Talking of the real winners we've seen at the beginning of this race, Drake, as you said, he's managed to put himself in front of Stewart in the 7. Timo Gartner in P3 in that AM class. Looks like he's doing pretty well as well. And said he, last time out, during his interview, that he has never driven Silverstone before, and it's not going too badly for him, even if he's not at the front of the pack.
This is a 2-hour race as well, so we know as the laps go by, these races are going to get more comfortable, they're going to get, you know, a little bit more settled into the track, and it might be a little bit easier for them to start pushing those faster lap times.
Absolutely. And looks like this battle here is staying pretty solid, as no one seems to be making any audacious moves. Of course, only 10 minutes into this race, you don't want to be making a stupid send to give yourself damage or get yourself a penalty if you can avoid it. But of course, the pack in front of them is pulling away. The Felix Mexner is 1 second behind Walter ahead, but Timo Gartner, Drake, and Garrett are pulling away by 6 seconds now as he looks round the outside. Does Phil Bauer. Doesn't look like any move to make there. Is he going to get a better run as we head on to the straight here? That Porsche, not notorious for being great in a straight line, especially with that front end damage. And he's looking up the inside and thinks a little bit better of it, and lives to fight another day watching the back of that pack. This is the closest battle we've got on track so far, and I think it's all being facilitated a little bit by Michael Rhodes, who is dropping off a little bit from the car in front of him, but not massively, enough to keep at least a little bit of slipstream down the numerous straights of this circuit. And it's all to gain for Phil Bauer on Felix Mexner as he gets within 3/10. Is he going to make a move on this hanger straight?
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how some of these drivers that collected a little bit of damage deal with this. You know, this track has more straights than some of the other tracks that we've been at in this series, so there's definitely a lot more room. You get a little bit of front end damage, you get some wind under the car, all of a sudden you lose, 5-10 kph down the straights, and that could be a little bit of a problem.
Absolutely. It doesn't look like it's enough for Phil Bauer down that straight. He only gained 0.06 of a second in the slipstream. Maybe running a bit of a higher downforce setup in anticipation for that rain, or maybe just biding his time and saving a bit of fuel as they've all kind of got caught into this pack a little bit. Now, this is right, Zach, that this is a bit different to any other track that we've been to this season. And, we went to Daytona. It has quite a few high-speed sections, but it's more on a banking rather than a straight, and has that fiddly infield section. We've been to the Nürburgring, of course, a lot more fiddly, only really one straight that you can overtake on. But coming up in the rest of the season, we're looking at quite some different tracks. We've got Le Mans in there, Sebring, I think, as well. There's quite a few different tracks, and do you think that's going to change up the championship order a little bit?
I think it'll be very interesting. When we talked about a little bit earlier, the Porsche tends to be a little bit down in those longer straights, so it'll be interesting to see if these drivers are going to be able to hold it together and keep it apart into those corners. As few as there are, it's still enough to gain yourself some distance, but lose it also.
Indeed. Let's have a look at Felix Mexner. He's looking up the inside there, trying to get past Michael Rhodes, and it looks like he has made it past without any damage, and I think that's let through Phil Bauer as Michael Rhodes has to go wide, but they are still going side by side in Maggotts and Becketts, and Michael Rhodes, his fight's not with the car ahead, and he decides to back off a little bit. But that has cost him.
You gotta know Felix was probably hoping that Michael would fit his way in between and give him a little bit of time to slip away from Phil there.
Yeah, absolutely. They are still on each other. Michael Rhodes has lost out a bit in the lead of the AM class. We're looking down the inside, but it's not going to happen just now for Phil Bauer, but he's putting the feelers out to see if Felix will get a bit scared and maybe go off the road. But hasn't worked this time. He's probably going to have to wait maybe down that first straight of the lap. Not too many places to make a move down here, although he is looking for it. He is looking, but you'd have to say you'd have quite the run to get someone into turn one in a GT3 here.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be a lot about setting it up, making him play in those mirrors, and see if he can force a mistake, which it looks like he almost did there.
Yeah, he was certainly having a little look as around the outside. Maybe he just feels he doesn't have the straight line speed on the Porsche and has to try something in the corners, because as you can see, they're kind of sticking together in terms of pace, and with a little bit of a defence from Felix, there's there's not really anywhere for him to go.
Yeah, I know sometimes we have Phil in the Ferrari, and that car can be a little bit understeery, so you got to be careful with the overdrive into the corners. You don't want to put yourself off track trying to get that position.
Absolutely, and that's something we haven't really spoken about thus far, is that a lot of the drivers complaining about how easy it is, Felix Mexner goes wide, it is to get an off track here, and we could see quite a few penalties being racked up, and that could decide the fate of this race. If I'm Phil right now, I've just watched Felix go off the track and gain, a couple of tenths, and that can be the difference of an overtake round here.
I think you're right. We saw that last week at Nürburgring. It was quite a bit of drive-throughs we saw compared to the week before, so we'll see how much this track competes and if maybe we beat that record.
Absolutely, and with the threat of rain looming, even if it doesn't get completely soaked for wet tyres, it's going to make this track greasy with all of the rubber of them going round for 2 hours, and it's going to make it even easier to get an off track. As I can see, Robin Wist is closer than ever on the back of Thomas Critchell on that battle of the pro class. Now, just having a bit of a think back from quite a few weeks ago now in Daytona, Tom was trying this strategy on the back of David, where he would just stick as close as possible, then back out in the corners to save some fuel. Can't see really any gesturing about moves here. Do you think the same thing could maybe be happening? Trying to save a bit of fuel, go a lap longer and overcut?
I think that's always a good idea, right? And whenever you're behind the car, to most extent, especially in endurance races, it's almost better to be in P2 until that first pit stop. You get a lot of extra fuel and you can end up saving yourself quite a bit of time in the pits.
Absolutely. And as we saw in Daytona, Tom Critchell does not want to be the one heading into the barrier like he was then. He'd very much be hoping that Robin, the car behind him, is the one heading. Of course, the walls aren't as close here in Silverstone. You've got a bit of grass, bit of gravel to run off to, so maybe a bit less of a risk in that sense. And I can actually see in the very back of our picture, as actually Robin's going for a move here round the outside. Is he going to make it stick on Tom Critchell? He's looking a bit behind. Is Tom going to force him out? Yes, and not the space for his move, but he's going to try again on the inside here and thinks a bit better of it. Doesn't want to tag his rear end. Oh, but that's a horrible catch for Tom on the curb, and through goes Robin as we head into turn one, and the order of that pro class gets turned up as Tom Critchell was on two wheels for quite a while there.
Definitely trying to make it look exciting out there, isn't he?
Absolutely, he is not making it an easy drive. I can see Phil Bauer, who was, or still is for the moment, right on the back of Felix Mexner, has got himself a slowdown penalty, which makes him have to drop back by quite a way.
One thing I noticed as well, it looks like Alex Drake took a little spin around, no damage, but he did lose himself 2 positions and went from a 2-second lead to a 6.5-second gap. So we'll see if he's going to be able to close that back up.
Indeed, I am seeing on my screens, it looks like Richard Neves might have disconnected from the session. We'll keep you updated if he comes back in and shows anything up there. So now we've got a bit of an established running order. We can have a little look at what happened at the start of this race. Let us first start off by looking at the car number 11 of João Costa and see what happens to him at the start as we're heading through turn 2 here. He's down the middle, he's got a car either side of him, and it doesn't look like... Oh, he just gets spun around there. And, oh, you need to hold your brakes there, pal, otherwise you're going to be heading into a world of pain. I want to see that maybe from a different angle and see exactly what happens. We've got that white Porsche looking up the inside, kind of 3 wide, kind of not. He's got a car on the outside, and he can't really go any further wide, and just kind of gets an unfortunate little love tap there, I think.
Yep, that first corner can be, really tight, especially when you're rolling into it on, cold tires, maybe a little warm from that opening lap, but, it's not going to be warm enough to really get the grip you think you're going to have.
And that is what happened to Jeffrey Damon there. You just saw it. I will play it back again from Jeffrey's point of view. You can see he's on the inside, and he just seems to tag Jeffrey Damon. Maybe a bit of netcode there, but Phil just kind of keeps pushing him and makes the spin worse than it was to begin with. And he almost rejoins into the path of that purple machine there. I think the stewards will want to have a look at that one for an unsafe rejoin. Wasn't aware of the car coming up behind him. Also have a little look, incident for Stefan Heinrich here. I think that might have been avoiding the spin, so I don't think he went off the track. And yeah, that looks like what it is to me. And then, as you mentioned, you thought Alexander Drake had gone for a spin, and you can see it happening almost there. And on the exit, he just kind of drops the back end. Oh, and you never want to be sideways on a racetrack.
Especially in those corners leading up to a straight like that, you'll end up losing a lot more time than you think when those drivers get a better run.
Absolutely, and always the risk of someone coming along and T-boning you. Richard Neves has reconnected, it seems, to the session, but he is 1 lap down now. So he's going to have quite the race in order to get back. And we've just seen David. He's got past Stewart. He's up to P3 in Pro, and that is going to help his championship as he moves forward and onwards to the pair of Wist and Critchell, 4.5 seconds in front of him.
He is not wasting any time at all, is he? He is on a mission.
Absolutely. Issues that meant he had to start in the pit lane, and we thought maybe it would suppress his pace a little bit as he got past all the cars, but that does not appear to be the case today at all. So, having a little look down the order now. No one seems to be particularly close together within their class. We've got Jeffrey Damon here, who we saw spinning earlier, who it looks like Mike Rhodes is just letting past here. Now, back in Daytona, Jeffrey Damon had a bit of a collision that kind of ruined his race a little bit. Doesn't look like it's done the most damage in the world. He is a 1.5 seconds off Felix Mexner and Phil Bauer, who were fighting earlier. And over the course of the next hour and 40 minutes, I think he might be able to make up a good few of those places. Have a little look at... That's completely the wrong button. There we go. Look at the lap times between them. And Jeffrey Damon has been absolutely flying through the pack.
Yep, he's definitely doesn't look like he took enough damage to slow him down at all. And we also have to remember, drivers are now getting that one fast repair. So, a lot of them are just going to be kind of trying to hold out, get as much fuel out of the tank before you pull in, get that pit, get that damage repaired, and see how much you can make up.
Absolutely. So we're looking at an interesting order caused by a bit of chaos at the start there. As Thomas Critchell's got to slow down, and Jeffrey Damon's gone for another spin. And
that's that balance that you got to play. It's speed versus safety. If you go too fast, you're pushing a little too hard. You leave yourself open to make, some mistakes like that.
And that has dropped him a lot further back, and now to last in that Pro-Am class. Nobody else involved in that situation. He just lost it all by himself and is now behind Costa, and I would say a good 30 seconds off of the Pro-Am lead. Not what he was hoping for in this particular race, or any race for a matter of fact. I thought I saw in there, I think Thomas Critchell might have got a slowdown And he has, because he's dropped a second and a bit off of Rowan Wiss, as we have a yellow flag in the first sector. And Stefan Heinrichs has got a meatball. What on earth has happened to him? Let's take a look.
Oh, no.
So we're heading through this last set of corners here. Coming on to the front straight. And oh, that looks like a horrible snap. And that's his back of his car completely gone. Quite surprised that that by itself has given him a meatball. But it obviously has, as he is back in the pit lane live. And oh no, that has completely collapsed his rear suspension. I can very much see why that has given him a meatball. I actually want to have a look and see how that was on board with him, because it just looked like it went without any warning.
Yep, it looks like he might have just gotten on that curb a little bit, bounced him, and then it just started to turn him.
He tried to save it, and, you know, from the outside, it didn't look like a big impact at all. But, yeah, you can see that rear suspension has completely collapsed. And I think, yeah, he decided to tow it back to the pit lane because he'd have to go a whole lap on a car that's not moving very quickly indeed to head back. Let's go back to the live action now. And just as we do, he's made his way out the pit lane, or out of his pit box, with that one fast repair in P5. So for him, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. 110 seconds behind Michael Rhodes, the race leader, but importantly, still not in last place in his class.
Yep, I know driving those Aston Martins, I've had a little bit of experience. It's almost like you hit it on the front side and it's like a tank.
Oh no, he's gone again.
Oh no.
Those cold tyres, I think, have caught him out, and he's gone straight forward into the barriers. But the damage does not look as bad as it was before.
As I was saying, that front part of that Aston Martin can be a bit of a tank. It'll take a lot of damage, but if you touch it on the corners of the rear, it's almost like it's made of paper mache. It'll just crumple under anything.
That is quite the disappointment for Heinrich there, who now goes a lap down on Michael Rhodes after that spin. Jeffrey Damon into the pit lane. I didn't see him have another incident, but I think he might be coming in early for his pit stop, maybe sensing that he can gain a bit of pace by getting on fresh tyres. Whatever damage he might have picked up from the beginning of the race, repaired as well. Or maybe he's got his eyes to the skies. Zach, any update on our weather situation as we see quite a dark cloud in the background?
It's looking like the chances keep dropping a little bit as time goes on, but when we hit 1:15, which is right about that last 15 minutes of the race, it's going to be at a 72% chance.
A real chance then for some rain to upset the end of this race and maybe send some cars flying into the wall, flying into the pit lane, or flying past each other. We will have to see how that unfolds, as we have an hour and 15 left for that last 15 minutes of potential rain at the end of this race. Someone we haven't seen in the lead too much this season, it's number 47 car of Samuel Garrett, who is 6.2 seconds faster than our previous Pro-Am leader of Timo Gartner, and 14 seconds in front of Alexander Drake. Looks like a very interesting battle unfolding in the championship because of that. In fact, I told you a lie. It is not a 14-second gap. Drake is right on the back of him. We go into interval mode. He is less than a second. And don't know what you think, Jack, but Zach, my apologies. We are seeing a bit of a weaker track for Timo here.
I think so. I mean, we know when we talked to him last week, he hasn't been on this track before, so it might be a little bit, I'm wondering if he maybe didn't get enough practice, not enough familiarity, and he's really using this first part of the race to learn those corners. Maybe we'll see him push. After that pit stop, he'll get some fresh tires, some fresh fuel, and maybe a little bit of a clear head.
Absolutely. No damage, as we saw in the early stages of the race a couple of weeks ago in the Nürburgring, but he is definitely having a lack of pace, as Alexander Drake, who, as we said, went for a little bit of a spin by himself earlier, was leading the Pro-Am class, is looking to get his way back up there. We have a little look of the timings. Looks like Drake has lost a little bit of time to him on the previous couple of laps. Before then was absolutely flying. Maybe a bit of a difference in tyre temperatures, and of course between the cars, and that little trip over the curb will not be helping him at all, as that's dropped the gap back to a second after he got it up to 0.3. Not completely sure why he's flashing his lights there, because that looked like a mistake all by himself.
Looking at the times, it looks like he put down a couple quicker laps, so he may be getting a little impatient, really wanting to get by Timo. But we know that the Porsche can be quicker in the corners, that McLaren can sometimes go a little deeper, but it's definitely going to be interesting trying to get by him with the way those two cars are set up. Yeah,
well, now this is interesting to see, as David, our championship leader and the winner of both races in our Pro class this season, is right on the back of that leading pack. I have to say, I don't think that pit lane start has cost him much at all, because as we approach the half an hour mark, he's right on the back of our overall race leaders.
I'm wondering if that starting from the pits maybe gave Robin and Tom a little sense of comfort, and seeing him in the rear view might scare him a little bit now.
Indeed, looks like he's cleaning his windscreen there, not for rain, but maybe for some dirt and dust that has been flicked up by these two cars in front of him. Spoke to Thomas Critchell last time out. He was nominating the DWR Leadership Driver of the Day, and he was very much saying that he wants to put an end to David's winning streak in this championship. Do we think that Tom's going to be able to fight him off, given the pace that David has moved up on them here? He's going to have to get some feisty moves indeed out in that Porsche, and probably catch up to Robin Wist with some pace as well, so he can get the slipstream, because now David less than half a second on the back of Tom as we head into our 16th of an estimated 61 laps now, and certainly going to be very interesting indeed as we head on to the next couple of laps.
Yeah, it's looking really interesting. David's fastest lap is about 0.6 quicker than Robin and Tom, so we know he's going to be pushing pretty hard to get by Tom and catch up to Robin. I think with that pit, he's going to really want to get past there and start to show his dominance over the field here.
Absolutely, and I think he's going to want to be able to get past him reasonably quickly, because these two battling away could well give Robin Wist a nice advantage as we head into the first round of pit stops in a little bit. Of course, we have had a few people into the pit for a damage repair so far, but no one really taking what we would imagine to be a scheduled pit stop. And surely, if you're in David's car right now, that 513 white Corvette, you're just pushing Tom around the circuit. You can see how close he is. Doesn't want to get so close that he bumps him in the back and maybe picks himself up a time penalty after the race, but he's willing him, please go faster through these corners and go a bit slower on the straights so I can get straight past you. And as we head up into Abbey, there's nothing happening for him.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how quick he's going to be able to get by Tom here. We know the Porsche is very good and pretty quick into these corners, and Tom is
and he's going to be able to go through pretty easily.
Another little hop.
That has not been a great corner for Tom in this race, and he's got to slow down for his troubles as well, and that was a little bit easier than I think we all thought, and maybe David and Tom thought, for him to get past. And now he can set off after Robin as Tom is dropping back, and I think he might be outside a second window by the time that we get to the straight, as we see his slow down clearing. Now he's going to have to wish, hope, and depend on Robin and David having a bit of fight at the front in order to catch back up. Of course, this pace in the pro class is so brutal that, you know, you make a little mistake like that and you're sat in P3 for quite a while, going to be hoping that something happens in front.
I think you're right. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this works out. We'll see if Tom can get any more luck out of that corner. Hopefully that's the last time we see him do a little handstand.
Yeah, absolutely. It has not done him well, and not going to do his incident ratings too well either, as I think we're seeing that Alexander Drake now is right on the back of Timo Gartner. Once again, he's managed to fix the problems he made, and actually you could hear him lifting off so much behind that Porsche, obviously struggling either with the dirty air or the Porsche struggling itself. He's got to slow down to not go into the back of him, and made up that time that he lost from having a little bounce over those curbs, catching a few drivers out. And is he going to be able to make a run as we head on to the hangar straight? He's sure looking like he is right behind him. Is he going to have a little look up the inside there? No, he's just going to stick behind, bide his time, and not make that same mistake he made earlier in the race of bouncing over those curbs, and maybe go for something as we head later in the lap. Timo defending as he tries to look around the outside. I think Timo might have been defending thin air a little bit there, because I don't think he was really ever going to be looking for a move in the 37 McLaren. And
looking at their times, it looks like Alex is a bit faster through the corners and through the lap times, and he might be getting a little bit frustrated and feeling like he's getting held up a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, he's going to want to set off after the 47 car, who's leading the Pro-Am class, and you know, any time that he's stuck, in his view, behind Timo is more time that he's going to have to make up, because Timo is very much dropping off the lead of this class. And he dropped back by quite a bit. Thought he might be looking to make a move on that straight, but he looks fastest through Maggotts and Becketts. So I think that the hangar straight is going to be his best option overall as we head further into this race. Gonna cut off of this battle now, because David Schilling in the Mercedes here, my apologies, in the Corvette, chasing down the Corvette. I'll get it right eventually. The Corvette chasing down the Mercedes of Robin Wist. He's right on the back of him already. That didn't take him very long at all.
And it looks like Tom might have taken another little trip over that curb. It has not been his best friend today.
Absolutely not, as this is for the lead overall and of the pro class. Yellow flag in sector 2. Can't see exactly who that is right now. We'll have a little look in a minute. I think it actually might have been Richard in the 966 class. We'll have a little look as David looks round the outside, round the inside. Is he going to be able to make any sort of move stick? Yes. Ooh!
Makes it look easy. Oh, they're very close.
I'm not sure if they made contact there, but they're going too wide as we head onto the straight here. It's Robin who is just in front for now, but David certainly has the straight line speed. As we come up to this section here, he dives down the inside, does David, and he is in. Ooh, and he gets bumped a little bit there. Now, that is how you make a move, but is also brought Tom Critchell back into play against Robin Wist here. Oh,
I almost made that look too easy, and I can confirm Richard Neves did have another connection issue. Looks like he was dropped.
That is very unfortunate indeed for him, and we hope that he is able to fix his connection for the next round out in a couple of weeks' time. So it is David who is once again in the lead of that pro class. Robin Wist right behind him. and looking to make a move. Definitely lots of weaving happening as we head down that hangar straight, but I think that Mercedes is just a bit too far back, and I fear that, that David is just going to drive away. Heading into the next lap of the race, it's going to make it lap 20 of a projected 60 lap race. That'll make us a third of the way through, and I'm pretty sure that Robin's going to pick up a 1x for that little off-track excursion there. Alex Drake has not got past Timo Gartner just yet, and looks like he's about half a second behind. Looks like it might be a frustrating little section of this race before the pit stops happen, and hopefully he can cut past him then.
He's not really gaining, he's not really losing. It looks like he's just having a hard time setting up, you know, some sort of move on Timo to get past him and start to make up some of that time. But the longer they fight, the further Samuel gets. He's got almost an 11-second lead now, so 2 seconds additional over the last couple laps. So them fighting is definitely, you know, going to give Sam more and more and more of a gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a little look at the overall order here. You can see everybody is actually quite nicely stuck together in their classes, with the exception of Jeffrey Damon, who has been into the pits already. So I don't think it is too much of a surprise that he is a little bit further back from the rest of his class compatriots. The only person in this race who's taken a actual drive into the pit lane, I do believe that the 17th and 18th place cars have gone for a meatball and for a disconnection respectively. It's not looking brilliant for Jeffrey Damon right now. His pace is slower than that of his Pro-Am class compatriots, but of course he will be on higher fuel than they are on right now, so he's hoping that his advantage is going to come during the second phase of his stint.
Like Robin and David are going at it again.
Indeed, as they're getting close together. It looks like Robin has just been about to hang on here, but he isn't coming at David with the pace that David came at him. And Garcia heads into the pits. Can't see that they've had a crash at all, so probably a scheduled pit stop for them. We're running on endurance fuel loads during this race, so the fuel tanks are allowed to be a little heavier than we saw during round one, where we saw lots of pit stops happening. Oh, a little wiggle as we came out of there for David, and not much time lost, maybe a couple of hundredths, maybe up to a tenth or so. You can see that red Porsche of Thomas Critchell looming in the background.
It's looking more and more like this is going to be a race for P2 and 3 as David just calmly keeps driving away. A little slip up there, but didn't lose any time, and he keeps gaining.
Absolutely, I think you're right. I think unless anything dramatic happens to David, he will be sailing off into the sunset. Not really a sunrise either. We're kind of midday, but sailing forwards into those approaching dark clouds. Phil Bauer having a look now on the back of Walter. They're both in purple DWR liveried cars, and they're very close together as we're heading through Maggotts and Becketts. Is there going to be any sort of move here? Looking at the lap times, it looks like Phil Bauer has been setting, on average, about 0.2 of a second a lap faster. And that is certainly going to be interesting as we head through into the pit stops. Of course, we've seen it. It's quite difficult for someone to set up a move round the Silverstone circuit in the GT3 cars. So I think heading into everyone thinking about their pit stops, you just want to do what the guy in front of you doesn't do for those last couple of laps of fuel, because that way you'll end up being able to use that extra pace, that extra couple of tenths a lap to hopefully get in front of them. You're able to get a good pit entry, a couple tenths more, and start to pull away. But it does look like Phil Bauer is dropping off a little bit on Walter for now.
I think you're definitely right. There's not a whole lot of overly complicated turns here. So these GT3s are very similar in performance, right? So you're really counting on the driver in front, maybe making a little slip, or you able to get a really good exit onto the straight to try to make anything happen.
Absolutely. Now, they may well be pretty evenly matched as cars in the dry, but if that rain does come along, maybe in an hour or so now, I know for certain and from experience that Porsche is absolutely the fastest GT3 in the rain, just its way that it's able to dance around on wet tyres in a way that no other car can. So I think those Porsche runners, the likes of Michael Rhodes, the likes of Walter, the likes of Tom Critchell, will really be hoping for a little shower to help them with their pace during the rest of this race.
And it's looking like as we head into these first pit stops here, we're getting into the percentage chance of rain. So at 12:30, we are back up to 23%. And then at 12:45, we're hitting about 36%. There's nothing on the radar yet, but I'm keeping my eyes peeled, and we'll see if we get any clouds or any sort of drops that start to hit this track.
Absolutely. Now, as I'm sure lots of our viewers are aware, Silverstone is notorious for a bit of spicy weather to come along. Now, a few showers will not make the track ready for wet tyres, but it will certainly make it a lot more difficult to drive. A couple of showers, you start to build up some puddles, but you've got a dry racing line. And as the likes of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton will tell you, that is certainly a fun racetrack to go on and an interesting evolution in our race, as we've got Michael Rhodes here on the back of Costa, who looks like he has quite the damage to his front end and is struggling to get the front to turn in. That Acura. Oh, and there was a spinner in the background there. I think it might have been JT Sawyer. Have a little look.
You are correct. It does look like that was JT.
What happens here? Oh, he just gets a bit too much on the power. Oh, but he manages to save it from going either the wrong way or into a barrier.
Definitely could have been worse than what he made it there. It was a good save.
Absolutely. We're seeing quite a few little spins during this race, I think. People not the biggest fan of this circuit. Quite a high track temperature for the time of year, 36 degrees Celsius. And it's really interesting to see that everyone's going for similar spins on the power in these GT3 cars out of pretty slow corners. However, few of them there are around this circuit. Of course, that's good for them, because if you're going a lot slower, much less chance of heading into a barrier.
Yeah, I think with some of these corners, you can get a little eager to be on power and try to, get as much extra as you can into the straights. And, that can either help you, but it can also screw you as well when you get those spins.
Absolutely, and it looks like we have our next car into the pit lane. It's Phil Bauer. Looks like he's got a few scrapes on the front of that Ferrari, but they don't look like they are the worst in the world. I wouldn't be using my fast repair on those at all, as he gets propped up on the jacks. Looks like he did use his fast repair on them, hoping for his sake that he doesn't have any more incidents in the race, but he's popped up on the jacks. He's going to be out on cold tyres, and that, as we saw earlier when there were cars coming out the pit lane, it's quite the struggle round those first couple of turns. They're quite technical for this part of the track, and just doesn't mix well with a cold, slick tyre. Now, heading out of the pit lane is Phil. Let's hope for him that he is able to make his way through these first couple of turns, maybe do some weaving down that first straight in order to get a bit of tyre temperature. And we're seeing Jeffrey Damon catching up now as he passes the pit entry. He looks like he's approaching about 9 seconds behind. He took a very early pit stop there. He's been on those tyres for 11 laps, probably to fix a bit of damage, but he is not that far off the back of the pack.
Looks like Sam Garrett has come in for his pit stop.
Yes, absolutely. He is the leader of the Pro-Am class, and in he comes after 25 laps on those particular set of tyres. A number in everyone's head if you watch the Formula 1 this afternoon. And he is going to drop down, come out just in front of Phil Bauer, we expect, after he's had a fresh set of tyres and a fresh set of fuel. And it is Michael Rhodes here, who has got Alex Drake behind him, who has really been on a charge during this race and doesn't want to get held up. And through he goes on the M-Class driver. So Samuel Garrett there comes out in front of Costa, who has come into the pit lane. We'll see as everybody makes their way back past the start-finish line how all of those gaps are working out. As we've got the top 3 or so. I think actually we might be slightly... There we go. And apologies, that wasn't Michael Rhodes that Drake was on. It was Timo Gartner. That wasn't for an AM-Class driver at all. That was for the lead of the Pro-Am class, because the top 3 AM-Class drivers are currently in the pit lane.
Yeah, it's looking like the pit strategies are going to be interesting. The top 3 of our pro drivers all are going 25 laps, and it looks like David was only able to pull out 24. I mean, we know he was pushing getting back to the front, so I think that was kind of an inevitability for him. But we'll see if that extra lap that the other drivers were able to run is enough to put them ahead, or if he's still going to be able to eat that gap away.
Well, it looks to me, Zach, like Tom Critchell and Stewart there, Mikey Stewart, have managed to make it another lap on top of Robin Wiss.
Well, they are going for 26. That is actually very surprising that they're able to get that much extra out of it. Yeah,
that is quite the interesting strategy there. You can see Tom Critchell coming up to lap Michael Rhodes. Good friends, but hopefully, for Tom's sake, Michael Rhodes will be letting him through quite quickly. But that's interesting because we can anticipate, as we saw a little bit at the Nürburgring, with an hour and 8 to go, halfway through this race, just over, everyone's going to need a little splash and dash at the end. If you're able to get an extra 2 laps of fuel during the pit stops, you're going to be looking at, you know, saving a couple of seconds, and that could be very important when the classes are so close together. Talking of getting close, looks like Drake has managed to get himself a black flag. Not sure if that was in the pit lane or not.
I'm going to go back and take a look here, and I'll keep you guys updated with what happened there.
That is not going to do him well at all. Either a drive-through or a stop and hold. And are we going to see Tom Critchell into the pit lane this lap? It sure looks like it, as I think he and Stewart might be the cars with the longest pit stops of this race. Indeed, everyone else has been in, so as we can see him rounding that corner, we want to keep our eyes on where David Schilling is on the track in the 513 Corvette and see where he comes out in relation to Tom Critchell. Of course, he is going to be on nice warm rubber for a good couple of laps now, whereas the Porsche is going to be on a set of cold, hard tyres, and that might make an interesting battle indeed as he's coming round to this last section of the lap past the pit entry. But of course, you have this technical set of corners that really does slow you down. Let's see where Tom Critchell is able to come out in relation. He's still sat stationary in the pit lane as David comes down the start-finish straight. You should see him in his picture. He's still stationary there. And David really has made a massive gain on those who he's been fighting with. That is an incredibly large gap.
Yeah, it looks like those 2 extra laps weren't enough to get anybody anything. David is just on an absolute tear today.
Something that has occurred to me is we can see this threat of rain coming. So can the drivers. Could David have potentially taken a shorter pit stop this time around to maybe anticipate that he's going to have to come in again, not for dry tyres, but for a change to wets?
You know, that might be a smart choice. The weather and the rain percentages just keep getting higher and higher. So I have a feeling, at least towards the end of this race, we're going to see some water touch the track.
Might also be trying to split that last pit stop, as we see in quite a few endurance races in iRacing. If you've got a splash and dash at the end, you'd much rather split and maybe take a set of new tyres for that next pit stop, whereas everyone who's coming in, if it does stay dry for that final couple of laps worth of fuel, you're not going to change tyres there because you won't heat them up and you'll waste about 20 seconds in the pit lane. It is now Thomas Critchell who is in P2 of the Pro Class, now that all of our pit stops have shaken out. He's managed to get in front of Robin Wist. There's a second gap between them, and it'd be interesting to see how that fight plays out. You see Andy Keane here is P3 in the AM class. JT Sawyer, that spin has cost him quite a bit, 15 seconds behind our class leader Michael Rhodes. And Samuel Garrett has a 15-second gap on Timo Gartner there. That is quite the gap to have.
I definitely think Samuel set himself up right. He would have been in trouble because Alex did come out in front of Timo, but to me, it looks like he let off that pit limiter just a little bit too soon and got himself a speeding down the pit lane penalty, which is just heartbreaking for him.
Heartbreak for him. He's not massively far off to the point where he's no longer in this race. 8 seconds off of Jeffrey Damon, who has been for his own adventures during this race. But so far, it looks like we might only have one new winner in this race if it does stay as it is. David and Michael have both won every race in their class so far this season. It's been Timo Gartner who won Daytona and Nürburgring in the Pro-Am class. Currently 15 seconds off though is going to be quite the ask of him in order to get back to that top step of the podium. As we see Andy Keane on the back of JT Sawyer here, and that gap has been coming down between quite two different race cars. Going down and looking, heading almost to halfway through this race. We have 1 hour and 3 minutes to go on lap 28 of 60. And that track temperature now has just ticked down 1 more degree, down to 32 degrees Celsius. That will be changing the feel of this racetrack for all of these drivers, especially those on fresh, cold tyres. They are going to have a bit more of an interesting time trying to warm them up, but once they have the colder track temperature, means that they're going to be able to push that little bit harder, and we might see the lap times coming down a little bit until that fabled rain arrives.
Looking at the weather radar, I'm starting to see some blue touch onto the screen where I'm looking at, so I'm really thinking that we're going to see some rain before the end of this race.
Well, if we're looking at the radar with about an hour to go, edge of the radar, looking at our current weather conditions, we might be looking at a wet last half an hour of this race. And that, I think, will shake up the order. There is so much time to be gained and lost by picking the right tyres at the right time. I'm thinking if there's rain with half an hour, starts falling with half an hour to go, surely all of these drivers are going to have to pit for wet compound tyres. I can't see anyone really surviving that long unless the rain is incredibly light for half an hour of rain.
I think you're right. It's definitely going to be interesting. And if you were right when you said that David Schilling cut that pit to look for those wet tires, he might have just made the right call.
Absolutely. If he's able to run faster now or having less fuel on his car, then it's going to have worked out pretty well for him in the strategy. Of course, where it all unravels is if the rain comes or it's ready for wet tyres 3 or 4 laps after when you've projected to pit. Because of course, you will have to make another pit stop or survive on a horrific set of wet tyres that are then ruined for the rest of your stint.
100%. Running any amount of dry time on those wet tires is just a huge deficit compared to the other drivers that'll swap right onto those wets.
Yeah, I mean, there is a sweet point where if you're running on a track that's maybe slightly too dry, you're able to build up the temperature in them as long as the track then becomes slightly too wet for the dry runners. But of course, we've got 18, now 17 cars running around this circuit, which means there's probably not going to be too much of a dry racing line forming, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to become quite obvious indeed when the whole track becomes wet rather than a particular dry line.
I think you're right. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Indeed, as Andy Keane looked like he went through that particular set of corners quite slowly. Not sure if he got slowed down. I didn't see it on my screen, or whether he just made a bit of a mistake. And looks like everyone's kind of fanning out in the order now. Nobody particularly too close together. Potentially playing it safe before we get to that anticipated rain. Looking like we're all sorted out now. Everyone is in their own classes and going round the track as such. And looks like maybe coming up in a couple of laps' time, Alex Drake is very much catching the back of Jeffrey Damon after serving that drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Let's have a little look down to him as we see our leader, David, 9-second gap now, and he is very close to the back of Jeffrey Damon, both being involved in different incidents in this race, and I don't think that Alex Drake will be wanting to stay behind Jeffrey Damon for too long, because all of his pace has been zapped away by that drive-through penalty, and he's going to want to clear them very quickly indeed.
I think you're right. The McLaren can also be pretty good in the wet as well, so I'm wondering to see once he gets onto those wets if he's done any practice, or if any of these drivers for anything have done any wet practice. We'll see who's going to get up and lose some in those times.
Absolutely. Some drivers screaming for rain, some drivers screaming for it not to be. There was some wet weather during free practice 1 yesterday. I had a little spy at the track surface, and there were quite a lot of puddles on the track, but no rain falling from the sky. So maybe not so much of a dry to wet transition, but a wet to dry transition for those who joined and took advantage of that session. Zach, what do you think are the cars that are really going to lose out if it does start raining here? My first thought goes to the Lamborghini, but it hasn't been particularly good in the dry either.
I think the Lamborghini, for most people, just kind of loses everywhere. The ones that I'm really going to be watching are those heavier front engine cars, right? We've got the like a couple of Mercedes out there, and we got those Aston Martins. Those guys on wet tires, that car tends to get really difficult to handle around those corners.
Yeah, you're quite right there, I think. And of course, there's quite a lot of driver skill that goes into racing in the rain. You have to keep that concentration. And I think that we will see a few spills and frills as Alex Drake goes down the inside of Jeffrey Damon. Jeffrey didn't look like he was fighting it too hard, but wasn't letting him through either. And manages to make himself up to P5 and set after the 59 car and that leading pack of the Pro-Am class.
He's looking pretty good. His lap times are still up there with the leaders, so we know he's going to be eager to close that gap and make up as much time as possible.
Absolutely. He absolutely has the pace. If we have a look at the average lap times now, of course, some of our drivers have been into the pit lane, so their averages are still working themselves out, as we can see there. We will see again once Alexander Drake crosses the start-finish line what his average lap time looks like in comparison to the leader, Samuel Garrett, who has a 15-second lead on Timo Gartner now. Be interesting to see what happens in terms of his overall pace against the leader. Because, of course, you're gaining on the leader, you're gaining on everyone behind them at the same time. Let's have a little look here. Comes across the start-finish line. And I don't think his average has updated. Maybe this lap was not valid. So as we head into the final 55 minutes of this race, I'm going to leave you for just a minute or two for a bio break. Zach, let us know what's going on the track, and I will be back in a moment or so.
Sounds good. All right, it's looking like Tom has actually made up a little bit of time. He's got a 7.5 second gap to David, so he's definitely making up a little bit of space there. We're wondering if those, the track tints are coming down, that rain's getting closer. Tom's confidence might be going up a little bit. See if he can keep it off that curb in the last corner for these last couple laps as he approaches. Take a look here. It's looking like Alex is pretty quickly closing down that gap to Phil. He definitely wants to make up any time here, but Michael still keeping his gap. He's got a 16, almost 17 second gap to P2, so he is nice and comfortable where he sits. Just got to make sure he makes no mistakes, no incidents, and it looks like he's got another podium in the bag. Nothing too crazy happening here.
Thank you very much.
Looks like everyone.
Oh, let's carry on.
Welcome back.
Thank you for that, Zach. I once again can see some dark clouds. What more is the radar telling us? Rain heading quickly, slowly, lots of rain, little rain?
It looks like it's heading towards the track pretty quick. It's picking up pace. From what I can see, it looks like we got a little bit of lighter rain on the edge, but we're heading into a lot of the heavier stuff. So if it does rain here, I feel like it's going to pour pretty quickly.
Well, if that isn't a reason to stay tuned for the final 50 minutes or so of this race, I can't think of a better one, because 17-second gap, 7-second gap, 17-second gap for our class leaders can all very quickly be undone by a spin off a wet curb, onto some wet grass, or into a puddle that you didn't see because it formed in just one lap. And I think we might be looking at a mad rush to the pits if the weather we can see on our radar is the weather that actually ends up hitting the track. And Garcia there has a black flag. I don't think they've been into the pits recently, so that might be our first incident limit hit for anyone during this race.
think you are correct. He's already been into the pits, or he's on his 12th lap out now. So you're correct. It's looking like he's going to be the first one to fall victim to that incident limit.
Indeed, Heinrichs will be very happy with that. Just 5 seconds behind him. He wasn't really challenging Andy Keane, 57 seconds in front. Now Heinrichs just has to do his very best to not get a black flag himself. That will be a drive-through penalty for 21 incidents, and then they follow thick and fast. It's going to be every 7 after. Now, if you've got 21 incident points, 50 minutes in, you're going to be maybe getting another 20 or so, and that's a lot of drive-throughs before the end of this race, if he keeps up the pace so far. I just heard the pit klaxon, and it's Jeffrey Damon who is into the pits on that alternative strategy after pitting early. I'm thinking, rain's on the way, that is going to do him pretty well if he fills up maybe 3/4 of a tank or so right now, because he'll be in a perfect position to be running out of fuel as that rain hits.
I think you're right. Looking up towards the front too, David's lap times have fallen off a little bit, and Tom is starting to close that gap. It makes me wonder if David's fuel strategy was just a little bit off, and with that rain getting closer, maybe he's trying to do a little bit of fuel saving, push it as close to when those drops start falling as possible.
Now, I didn't see when we actually had the rounds of pit stops. Is it possible that David kept his tyres on, maybe thinking that he could use them just until it got wet, and maybe that's coming back to bite him now? But you're very, very correct, because Thomas Critchell has been on average over the last 5 laps or so, half a second quicker than him. That's not really what we expected. We expected David to get to the front and run away.
Looking at the pit times, he hit the same average as the other drivers, so I definitely think he changed during that pit stop. I think he might just have miscalculated that fuel a little bit, and he might have to save to be able to make it all the way through.
Indeed, of course, the drivers do not have access to the same radar that we do. They end up with a summary of every 15 minutes or so telling them the rain chance. None of these drivers, unless they're listening in to try and get some extra info about the rain, will be aware that there is rain on the radar and almost certainly going to hit the track. But if you see a 80% chance of rain, you can be pretty confident that it is on the radar. And that gap is just coming down quicker and quicker. I think you might be very right, Zach. And David is trying his very best to save the fuel for when that rain does fall. And I think that his strategy might have bitten him a bit harder than he wanted to.
Looking at the radar, that rain is getting pretty close. I'm wondering if some of the drivers have gotten that cue from their spotter that rain is incoming.
And that will certainly put fear through some of these drivers if their spotter says that rain is close, especially if they expect heavier rain soon, not just something to give a sprinkle to the track, but something that's going to require a change to wet tyres. And the pace is falling off for David, who comes into the pit lane now, and that strategy has gone completely wrong for him because there's no rain anywhere over this circuit.
Definitely curious what he's doing there. He was only on, let's see here, his 11th lap out. So I'm wondering at this point, with the way his tires are, maybe he's trying to come in, get a little bit extra fuel to try to make it to where he thinks it might start raining. But that is definitely an interesting call.
I am hearing from a good source that David didn't take tyres on the last pit stop. He'd had the same pit stop time, but didn't take tyres.
Very interesting. So it seems like he was really counting on that rain coming a little bit sooner than it has.
Indeed, we still have 47 minutes left of this race, and we've got Timo Gartner, who's P2 in the Pro-Am class, right behind David here. Now, I have no doubts whatsoever that David is going to pull away from him. But 20 seconds up the road, he's going to have to get past our pretty speedy Pro-Am leader in Samuel Garrett. And if you look at the average lap times, there's just a tenth between them over the last 5 laps. And it confuses me a little bit why David would take that risk from the lead of the race by 10 seconds.
Maybe he thought it was going to be closer than it was. It's definitely a curious thought. It might be good if we can get him into the box with us after this race and see what his thoughts were there.
Absolutely. I see Heinrich in the pits. I'm not sure whether that black flag has been caused by coming into the pit or whether they've picked up a separate penalty for incident point. But they are far behind Garcia now. Something must have
It's looking like there. He might have been the second one to fall victim to that incident limit.
Very interesting indeed. We'll have a little look at how the gap shapes up after he comes out of the pit lane. Seems to be taking an awfully long time though. And those cold tyres from David means that actually Timo Gartner is still right on the back of him as we come to the end of this lap and weaving down the straight to try and get a bit of temperature. That's not going to help if the rain comes now, because his tyres will be slick and frozen. We can see he has dropped down to P5 overall from the red number on the side of his car, and I wouldn't be feeling particularly confident that David's able to make up that 22-second gap in 45 minutes. He needs to average half a second a lap faster than Thomas Critchell, our current race leader, but also has to get past him on what we are almost certain now will be a damp, if not wet, track. And he's going to have to come into the pits again at the same time as them, so there's really no pit stop difference. We have a little look now. We can see that pretty much everyone is on 10 or 11 lap old tyres, looking at 25, 26 lap stints if you really push it and are able to save some fuel behind a car. They've still got another 15 or so laps to go. Lap times around here, you're looking at half an hour, and I think the rain will have well set in by then. So I think that David has made a bit of a strategy fumble.
The more we look at it, the more I think you're right. I don't think he was, I don't know if he was just planning on the rain being sooner or if he thought maybe he can get some more life out of those tires. But, I think it was definitely a mistake for him.
I'm wondering a little bit if he thought that the rain wouldn't come at all, and that short middle stint would be much better than having a short, even shorter stint at the end. I'm just trying to come up with maybe a few reasons here that he would have made that decision. I'm sure we'll be able to talk to him after this race and get his point of view, or maybe he just really wanted to show off his prowess in that Corvette and just go another 20 seconds back after a pit lane start, do a Max Verstappen and win still.
That would be quite the show of talent, I'll tell you what.
That would be a level of confidence that I don't think I've ever had in a race before, to be able to start from the pit lane, have an extra short pit stop for fun, and then regain the lead again. Of course, could be the fact that maybe he thinks that the rain won't be bad enough to make the track wet enough for wets. But from what you were saying a bit earlier, Zach, the rain coming in looks like it might be light for a little bit, but then go quite heavy.
Yep, it's getting closer and closer to the track, and we got some deep dark green areas that are going to be moving over. So if it hits those areas, that rain is going to come hard, and we're going to get some pretty big puddles, I think.
Deep dark green areas are very much not what will keep this track dry and allow David to stay out on the track. And that is certainly going to form some puddles, especially when you're heading through corners like Copse. It's going to make it very tricky indeed, not only during that transition phase, but when you get onto the wets as well. If you are in one of those heavier cars, you're in a BMW, you're in a Mercedes, not particularly well suited to the rain, they're going to struggle, I think.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be all about trying to make up as much time and get as close as you can before this rain hits, and then just see how you fare.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see it in the background. If we have a look at who's gained and who's lost during the first course of this race, well, David has lost out so far, down 3 positions, had a PC issue that meant he had to start from the pit lane, but managed to fight his way back up to P1. Currently taken an early pit stop in comparison to everybody else, and is currently in P4. Having a little look, Alexander Drake down 4. It's quite the contrast of Walter, who started at the very back of the entire pack, up 4 in his class and in P4. And Richard Neves, who we believe had some sort of connection issue, started very far forward in the AMPAC, down 5. Sawyer and Keane up 2 each to take the lead of the AM class and second place. Michael Rhodes down 1 from where he started. He was in quite the lead early. I'm not sure if anything's happened to him recently, or whether he has made a strategy choice in coming in a little bit earlier as well. We can't see here. Michael Rhodes is actually on fresh tyres right now. Looks like he was trying a similar strategy to David, and similarly, I don't think it's going to work for him, being on fresh dries just before the rain hits.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work out for any driver. Right about the time you get those tires set in, you bleed off a little bit of that fuel and the car gets comfortable, that rain's going to start coming down. It's going to change a lot. And
a little bit of information, if you haven't driven wet tyres in iRacing, you're always better off having a set that's been scrubbed in for a good amount of time, because they're going to have a lot of heat in them, and then you're going to be able to go around essentially on a wetter track than if you could on a fresh set of dry tyres. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Of course, you'd think you'd want fresh new tyres to come out in the rain, but they'll be too cold. They won't have built up enough heat in them, and you're just going to go sliding absolutely everywhere. And Garcia, who's currently running 4th place in the AM class, has got themselves a meatball. Let's go have a look at what happened to them riding on board. This doesn't look like... Oh, they've just turned in a bit too much. Oh, are they trying to hit their tyres? Oh, that has been quite the airplane crash.
Taking a little tumble there, isn't he?
I'm not sure if that was a act of frustration or was just trying to heat his tyres, if I'm completely honest. But whoa, I've never seen a car go through that sign. But I can see why a meatball ended up like that. At least he landed the right way up.
That's a bit of an interesting crash for me. I don't really know what he was doing coming out of that corner.
I think if that crash was on purpose, I think I would see an investigation by the stewards after this race. Whether it was just an accident from heating up his tyres, we will have to see after this race has concluded, and we'll keep you updated next time out. David now has made quite the inroads. He is 16 seconds off Thomas Critchell in the lead of that AM class. No, apologies. He's now 16 seconds behind Stewart in that AM class. He's much further back on the lead, 38 seconds, which seems unsurmountable in the same number of minutes during this race. Going to have to gain a second a minute, 2 seconds a lap, while dealing with that transition to a wet track. Seems pretty difficult. And, well, we went from earlier in the race where we had 1 new winner in our 3 classes. Every class now currently has someone who hasn't won a race yet in the lead before we head into the potentially heavy, rainy section of this race with 40 minutes to go. There is still quite the race to have.
think you're right. This track was definitely a week to shake things up, and we'll see how everyone can end it off. They can keep it safe and keep it on the track.
Absolutely. I think Garcia has cleared their meatball now. Mustn't have used their fast repair just yet. We'll see how that shakes out at the bottom of the class. Jeffrey Damon is 102 seconds off the lead. He took an early pit stop, but it was not as early. Well, actually, it was one lap earlier than David, actually, but he was on a different strategy, and he had pit earlier in the race, so maybe he has ended up winning a little bit from that because he had an early stop. But he is still 102 seconds off the Pro-Am lead, and hoping that he can gain some time during the rain pit stops, if that rain does indeed hit that track with a significant amount of time to go. See what else is happening out there on the track. Samuel has got to cut in there in the Lamborghini, and I'm not completely sure who that is behind him, but Samuel is Samuel's in the white car. My apologies. He's having a lovely time out front, 20-second lead. Someone just head into the pit lane, and that was Stewart. This, I can't make sense of this strategy in my head, and how all of these drivers who are, they're amazing drivers, much better than me, have all come to this same flawed strategy conclusion of coming in early for fuel. Maybe Mikey here doesn't change tyres. No, he gets propped up. He's changing tyres, and we think rain's about to come around the corner. I can't make sense of it.
I'm struggling to figure out what these strategies are. This is going to be an interesting end, I think, depending on if that rain comes or, what everything shakes out to be.
Well, generally in iRacing, you can be pretty confident, I would say, that rain is going to come if you can see it on the radar, and it has indeed been on the radar with some pretty dark colours as well. I just kind of can't really make sense of what is going on here with all of these drivers coming in laps before we think that rain might hit the track. Why take that risk? I have to question. But it will be very interesting to see how it shakes out. But Stewart now, if it starts raining now, he's in massive trouble because he's currently in P9 overall and is only 20 seconds or so off of being a car that's a lap down. I just can't make head nor tail of it, as we see Felix Mexner's race is not going to plan, as he has got a drive-through penalty. Haven't seen him in the pit lane. That is our third driver this afternoon who has ended up with a penalty for track limits and similar violations, hitting 21 incident points. Going to lose about 30 seconds or so, and probably be back towards Jeffrey Damon and behind the Pro-Am the AM leader of J2 Sawyer. That is not going to do well for him.
Oh man, looks like Phil Bauer might have gotten himself a slowdown. That's gonna make Alex a little happy there, maybe help him catch up some space there.
Absolutely. And penalties galore at this point in time. And yeah, I very much think we're going to see a couple more drivers in the final half an hour of this race pick up some penalties. Zach, I've got some dark clouds. Give us a weather update.
It doesn't look like it's come into the zoomed in radar quite yet, but it is moving quite along. It does look like that patch of the green is just a patch. It's surrounded by some lighter rain, so it'll just depend on if it's enough to get that track as wet as I think it's going to be.
Give us a little bit of an idea of how close the rain is to the circuit. It's not in the zoomed in map yet. How far away would you say it is from being on that zoomed in map?
I'd say looking at the way that it's moving, we're maybe another possibly 2 or 3 laps from it starting to hit onto the track radar. So I think it's going to come down to that last maybe 15 minutes or so that we'll really start to possibly see some raindrops. So it'll just be whether or not it's enough to get that track wet enough in 15 minutes, or if this is just going to be a slick tire, slippery finish.
Absolutely. Maybe it will be us who ends up looking a little bit silly after questioning everyone's early pit stop strategy for this rain. If it indeed does stay for slick tyres, because of course those who came into the pits earlier are going to have warm slick tyres while everyone else is going to have to go for cold tyres. As we see, Drake has made his way past Walter and is up into P7. Comes P4 in his class, and that didn't look too difficult at all. Phil Bauer is in the pit lane, presumably for some new dry tyres, and so is Alexander Drake, straight into the pit lane. Everybody's coming in now. No sign of rain on the circuit. Everyone's seemingly missing the fact, at least in my opinion, that this rain is coming, and that they might have a problem. Oh, Drake has got a black flag coming into the pit lane. He must have sped trying to pick up a bit of time, and now he's going to drop many, many seconds because of it.
Pit lane has just not done him well today.
No, and we've seen Phil Bauer has been lifted up on his jacks to change tyres, as has Alex Drake. They're all changing tyres, and do they know something that I don't? That's what I'm thinking at this point in time. Surely they must know something I don't.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're just counting on this race being over just as that rain hits. The percentages do keep moving further and further away, so it's looking like it's getting more and more likely that this race might end on dry, and it was just a sneaky bit of rain trying to show itself.
It's going to be very interesting indeed. Talking of interesting, we've got Robin Wist right on the back of Thomas Critchell. If they are both holding out for the rain, we can expect their lap times to start dropping off as they try and save a bit of fuel, go as long as possible, and have to see here how that works out for all of our various drivers. Let's have a look here if we can't find the right button of everybody's class positions. There we go. Samuel Garrett, you have to say, has a pretty solid lead in that Pro-Am class, as does JT Sawyer right now. 24 seconds he has on Mike Rhodes, and the same-ish gap for Timo Gardner. Thomas Critchell and Robin Wist, as we are watching right now, very close together on track. And looks like David has managed to make his way a little bit closer to the lead of this race, 34 seconds behind, but still not super close. And if it does rain, I think he is going to be in a lot of trouble strategy-wise. Watching them come through the Maggotts and Becketts section now. And this will turn very tricky indeed if any sort of puddles form on those curbs, because there's only kind of one line through that corner, and it'll be where the puddles form, as we're seeing Mikey Stewart get past here, and I think that was Andy King, but he drives off the road and might have to do that overtake one more time as we head onto the straight, as the Greg's car leaves him some space, not his fight, and off he goes again. So it looks like David now is coming up on to the back of some lap traffic. I think he's coming up on Michael Rhodes there. He's flashing his lights to say, get out the way, I'm coming through. But of course, ooh, that looks very close indeed. David is absolutely on a charge to try and get as far up this order as possible. But that looked incredibly close.
It was very close indeed. You know, as that time ticks down and he sees that gap at, 34.8 seconds now, he's running out of time very quickly to get anywhere closer than he is.
Absolutely. And of course, he is very much banking on the fact that everyone else in front is going to be taking a pit stop for dry tyres. And indeed, we have the answer. We have the question of where is the rain. It's holding off from falling on the circuit. Can't see anybody turning on their windscreen wipers just yet. As we've got 27 minutes to go in this race. Just 1 second between the two drivers in our pro class, both of whom I think are very much holding out for this rain because they want to be able to secure a 33-second gap on David. You don't get that for free anywhere else apart from when the track gets a bit damp.
Yep, it's looking like the rain moved real quick right up next to the track, and it has slowed down quite a bit now. So it'll be interesting to see if it gets close enough to start raining or if the residual heat from the track and the surrounding environment is enough to keep that rain pushed away.
We are going to keep our eyes on the screen and see if we can see any sort of rain falling within the next couple of minutes or so. Very much a tumultuous part of the world for weather, so there is very much a chance that the rain is able to butt up against the track and maybe make just a particular section of the track a bit slippery for the end of this race, but there is still lots of time for it to envelop the track and to very much cover all of those curbs that are dipped down with nice puddles.
We are at Silverstone, so we know there's always a chance within 5 minutes the track could go from dry to wet. It is a very, very surprising place to be racing here.
Absolutely. And I think everybody's in a bit of a lull right now about will it rain? When will it rain? And will I need wet tyres? I don't see anybody pushing particularly hard relative to those around them because they want to keep their fuel, keep their tyres maybe a little bit, and keep their brains for some wet weather racing. If we look at the lap time comparison, with a few exceptions of those who've had little incidents off track or who've had to go in the pit lane, everyone's lap times are looking pretty similar to the position that they are in within their class right now. And I can see some grey clouds, and so can the drivers as they head through that Maggotts and Becketts section of the lap, and just waiting now to see what happens. I've got a report here of David has been involved in a little bit of incident. Let's see what happened to him. We head down here. He pokes his nose up the inside and manages to spin no one but himself. And that was a lapped car in front of him, and that's how he ended up behind Michael Rhodes. But from my point of view, it looks like he caused that all by himself, and that cost him some precious seconds in the way heading up towards the lead of his class. Also looks like Zhao has potentially been involved in an incident here. See what happens. Does he go for a spin? Yes, he does, but oh, that's quite the save to not send the car facing any other direction. Good job from him. Let's go back live now and see what's happening. We've got Robin Wist right on the back of Thomas Critchell, 0.3 of a second, and heading through and seeing what might happen here.
Looks like our P1 and P2, Tom and Robin, they're hitting into their 22nd and 23rd lap of this race. So they're going to be hitting that point now where they got to be thinking about that splash and go, whether they're going to change the tires. We'll see what happens there.
I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for this rain to see what happens. But yeah, now that strategy calls that we saw from everyone earlier on, where we were like, why are they going to do this? The rain's about to turn up. Well, there is no rain. It's not with us on the track right now. And if it's light, it's going to take a good number of laps for that track to actually get wet enough for wet tyres so you don't burn up your wets. And yeah, there's some real thoughts to be had here. If you are Tom Critchell, if you are Robin Wist, if you are Sam Garrett or JT Sawyer, if you think that there's still a chance of the rain coming, you're going to want to keep your nice hot tyres on and not go for some stone cold fresh tyres that might end up sliding you off the road if the track does get wet. And indeed, those clouds are still
my
threatening.
eyes locked onto this radar, and the rain is getting closer and closer and closer. Not quite on that zoomed in level yet, but it's definitely approaching. We'll see if it's quick enough or it picks up any amount of speed to get covered over this track at all.
It is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch at the end of this race. What if we get the last 5 minutes or so in complete downpour? What if it just sprinkles enough and we have to have a strategy call on whether you stay on dries or take the time loss for the pit lane? It is all going to play out in the next 20 minutes during this race. And it
will be very interesting. You know, usually we see that last 15 minutes is where drivers really start to push and try to make their way up. And if that rain hits at about that same time, it's going to make me wonder how many drivers are actually going to be able to make that last, 10, 15-minute push for a position.
Indeed, and we saw it last time out with Phil Bauer that your race can really change in those last couple of laps. I think it was in the dying 10 minutes to go. And it's going to be interesting if rain does kind of affect that end of the race. And let's see what happens here as Robin Wist is still firmly attached to the rear wing of Thomas Critchell, and doesn't look like they're going to be going for mega moves. And the sun's out now, so nobody can really tell what is happening around this circuit.
Looks like we're getting another Silverstone special. We're going to be all surprised at the end of the race to see what happens.
Absolutely. Nobody really knows, not even us, with a radar, of what is going to happen in this weather. But as is common with Silverstone, it's quite common to get a little bit of sunshine before an absolute downpour of rain, just to give you a bit of false hope that your day out will stay nice and dry. But having a look at when everyone stopped, it's 3 laps for Tom Critchell, 2 laps for Robin Wist, until we're kind of expecting their pit stops with a bit of fuel saving. I have to say, I think I was very much wrong with that strategy earlier, as we see Samuel Garrett head into the pit and Walter into the pits as well. I think I was very much wrong when I said that David had made the wrong strategy call, because it might actually work out quite nicely for him here.
Well, sometimes you gamble and you win.
Absolutely. I don't think any of us actually looking at the radar would have thought that would have been the case. But indeed, it is looking like we're heading towards a dry-ish end to this race, and these two drivers are going to be in trouble.
I can give us a happy update. It looks like we're getting some rain on some parts of the track.
Oh, I can see it. It's raining. It's raining.
It's
raining. It's raining. I've just seen a bit of rain, and there it is coming into the pit lane. The rain is starting to fall in this section of the track. There's nothing here. There is. So for Tom Critchell and Robin Wist, you really have to think now, with potentially 1 or 2 laps of fuel remaining. What do I do? Because you're going to have to come back into the pits for wets if it gets heavy.
Yeah, looking at the radar, it looks like as it got closer to the track, some of that darker, lighter green has dissipated. So we've got a lot of the, the light blue into some of that darker blue. So it's It's gonna rain, but we'll see if it's enough. The interesting thing is, on the radar, we haven't even started approaching the track yet. So this is definitely a Silverstone special of some surprise rain when I was not expecting it.
Well, we're seeing a couple of drops then around this circuit, and that might freak a few of these drivers out, because it can get so psychological when you see the rain falling. You go, must be time for wets, or, you know, scare you into losing some pace. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true, where you can just lose pace from the psychological effect of seeing those raindrops on your windscreen. And no one's got their wipers on just yet, but I think that these cars here are going to have to come into the pit lane very soon. I think they're going to have to go for dry tyres, just looking at how much it's raining.
I think you're right. You know, with having enough heat in the tires and the way the rain is, it might just not be enough. It is cooling the track down quite a bit, though. We are down to 26 degrees.
Indeed. That is quite the departure from the 32. We were at 36 at the beginning of this race. But yeah, it just looks like there are select points on this track where it is now raining, and one of those points is the pit lane, and we see Robin Wist heading into the pit lane here, and I want to stay with him because I want to know what he's thinking of doing. You can see it on his windscreen. There are drops of rain as you roll down the pit lane, but the track is completely bone dry in front of you. If I was him right now, I'd stay on my worn dry tyres and go back out with something that's hot and come back in if I'm really forced to for the wet. But no, he's been lifted up. If my eyes don't deceive me, if we can get a camera angle, indeed, he's lifted up and he's going for a brand new set of tyres. The question is, are they wets?
I'm keeping an eye on my overlays right now. We'll see as he exit the pits if he's on wets. It does look like Felix made the choice to switch to wets, but I don't know if that's going to be a good choice, as the track state has just ticked over to a mostly dry state for me.
Now, this is interesting as JT Sawyer comes into the pit lane. Mike Rhodes re-inherits the lead of the AM class. This is going to be a fascinating end to this race, as I can see a tiny bit of spray coming off the tyres of Robin's Mercedes, and that is going to be interesting. Of course, nothing close to what would require wets right now, but ooh, he's struggling his way through there, and looked a bit heavy. Zach, tell me if he's on wets or is he on dry tyres right now?
It looks to me like he took a fresh set of dry tires, which is a very interesting choice.
That is very interesting indeed. He thinks that the track is going to stay dry enough to not only heat those dries up nicely, but also not require a change to the wet compound. It's looking very light right now, but we still do have 14 minutes left of this race, and it can all change very, very quickly indeed. Thomas Critchell now, our former race leader, is into the pit, but what I failed to notice is David is a second behind Robin after the pit stop, and on go those windscreen wipers.
Looks like we're at about a 5% track wetness right now. The track has gone down another couple degrees to just under 24. We're at 23.9. So the temperatures now are really starting to dive. So Robin's going to have an even harder time out there as he gets passed by, it looks like maybe, oh, sorry, I'm looking at Felix over here. My apologies. But still wondering if he's going to have enough time to get heat in those tires. It's definitely going to take a lot longer than it did at the beginning of this race.
Indeed, as you were saying, Felix has got passed by Michael Rhodes there. He is on the wet compound tyres, we believe, Felix. And it's not working for him just yet, but he is at the back of that Pro-Am class. So maybe it will work out for him. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. Looks like it might be Stefan Heinrichs. Let's see what's happened to him. Going through here. Getting a bit of a wobble. Might be on fresh tyres. I have a feeling I know what's about to happen. Yep, and he spins it round in a place where quite a few drivers have spun it today. and that's not going to help him.
Interesting outcome here. It looks like Tom made the choice to swap to a wet compound, hoping that the rain is really going to start dropping here and give him that advantage.
Well, David showing here on the more worn tyres, taking an earlier pit stop, has come back into the lead of that pro class. This is some risky strategy from Tom Critchell, I think. He is going to be doing a little rain dance with his feet in the cockpit, but it does look like it's getting quite a bit wetter out there.
We're at a very light, wet track state now. As I'm looking at the radar, the wind has actually shifted south and pulled some of that darker colored rain down. So it's looking like it's going to pick up here a little bit in this last 10 minutes.
This is going to be a very interesting end to this race. We've got drivers on dries. We've got drivers who are risking it on wets. We've got Phil Bauer into the pits. I can only imagine to change over to some wet tyres. And what is going to happen? Who is going to try and keep their track position and stay out? And who is going to take the risk on the wets? It looks like Tom Critchell has dropped back a lot of time on this lap. He's lost almost 4 seconds coming out of the pit lane. But of course, that can all very quickly come back to you. As look, that first corner looks pretty treacherous as David heads through there. Kind of deceiving. You can see it's so bright on the track, but just the pockets of rain seem to be making it quite difficult to drive in these damp.
Yep, and that darker colored rain is moving quickly now. It looks like it is wasting no time in getting that track nice and wet. I'm starting to see a couple cars sliding around. Absolutely. It looks like Timo decided to come out, staying on his old set of dries as well, just taking fuel along with Sam. So we'll see if that's able to help them out and what kind of shifts this rain is going to make.
Indeed, I want to have a little look at what kind of lap times David has been doing. His average is a 2:0.7, but I think that is very quickly going to start coming down because the track, you can see a bit of spray coming out of everyone's tyres right now. No classic rooster tail from the diffuser just yet, but if that green rain does hit with 10 minutes to go, then we are going to end up with quite the we are quite going to see the shift in positions as David seems to be going well. Tom Critchell has dropped another 7 seconds this lap on his wet tyres and has gone for a slowdown as well, so must be having quite the struggle out there. He will be wanting a heavy downpour of rain immediately, but looking at all of the cameras we have out on the track, it looks like it stopped raining for the time being.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It looks like that patch is hitting that northern part of the track right now. So it's going to be one of those things where it looks like half the track might be really wet and the other half might be really dry.
I can see from our flashes of yellow that we are having quite a few cars now going off track and probably exceeding those track limits. I can only imagine that is because of the difficulty of this semi-wet track that they're all going around. 9 minutes remain. I can see a tiny splodge of rain that just went in front of the camera and then disappeared again. So it's going to be interesting as we head deeper into the lap how wet it's going to be. And of course, all of these drivers are heading into the unknown as they head around every corner. Is it going to be a bit drier than last time? Is it going to be a bit wetter? It's not worked out for Jeffrey Damon, who's got another black flag in this race. And Tom Critchell as well, 21 seconds back now. I don't think he really made... Oh, that was a bit of a slide out of there from David. The right call for those wet tyres, because I think he could have been back in the pits for some wets if it got wet enough. I can see, actually, there's a good few cars now with their rain light flashing, which makes me think the session has been officially declared wet.
The track state right now is a very light wet, so we know some of those drivers are getting that warning. But looking at the radar, it looks like just a little under half of the track is still in that rain patch. So it's going to be very interesting as only parts of the track are going to get a lot of that rain.
Indeed, and you've got to make the all-important choice of wets or dries. And so far, from the lap times we can see, it is the dries that are winning so far. 7.5 minutes now. Robin Wist, 3/10 off the back of David, who has won every single race of this championship so far. But can he keep it going in these mixed conditions? And it doesn't look like he's gonna.
It definitely looks like David's starting to struggle a little bit on those tires.
Of course, they are well worn. Maybe he's fuel saving a little bit, but it is such an interesting track state that we've got going on here, because the sun is shining, the track is cold, and the track is damp, but only rain falling on some parts of the track makes it very tricky in certain sections. And now I think what David maybe really didn't want, he's coming up on a load of laps traffic.
Yep, we've got lap traffic, we got a moist track, and we've got not a lot of time left. That's not a good mixture for keeping the lead.
Absolutely, as we can see, Jeff Damon and Phil Bauer, I think it is, having a bit of a battle in front, and that's even worse for David. A set of cars battling that aren't even in your class with a challenger behind. We can see the rain is falling there, and I can see more and more spray on the old start-finish straight coming out the back of those cars. And this is going to be very spicy indeed, I think, because you've got to navigate all these cars that are struggling as well as you, with a car right behind you and through Maggotts and Becketts. That is quite the ask. I think he's really asking, please let me through, as Robin follows him through. And no love lost between those two, as they're getting in the middle of the Pro-Am battle.
This is very interesting. It's on like 70-80% of the track. It looks almost bone dry, but you get into that last corner going into the start finish, and you can actually see the water starting to form a little bit on the track. So you're definitely going to have to be very careful coming around that last corner to make sure that you don't slip out a little bit too much.
This is a real test of all of these drivers' skill now to keep it on the road. I am watching the gap from Thomas Critchell to the leaders. It's dropped to 30 seconds now. You could almost get a tyre change in there for free, and he is going to need these guys to either decide to go for wets or have a massive screw up. I can't even see much spray coming out of the cars on the start finish straight. What a bizarre level of weather we've got here. It looks like almost nothing, but it's the international start finish straight that is absolutely soaked with water.
Yeah, I think this is definitely, I was expecting it to hit the whole track or none of it. The fact that we've only got a percentage of it, I think, is going to be hard for some of these drivers. Maybe you're coming around dry, you get a little confident, and then you hit that really wet patch, and it can cause some big mistakes.
Absolutely, and David here is wanting to get past Jeffrey Damon, who's holding him up. He's got a bit of a gap to Robin. Oh, look at that slide through there. You can see everyone's struggling a little bit in this back half of the lap. And indeed, you can see, and Jeffrey Damon's gone for a spin. And and David Schilling's got a black flag. Oh my God, what a turnaround in this race. He must have been so close and just got clipped. And that's it. He's got a drive-through penalty.
Unfortunately, it looked like it might have even been net code that gave him potentially that 2x, maybe even a 4x that pushed him over that limit. That is incredibly unfortunate for him.
Absolutely. As we go into the final 3 minutes of this race, that is absolutely heartbreaking for David, as he is going to have to serve a drive-through penalty, or if he doesn't serve it, he's going to have 40 seconds added onto his race time, and that might go well for Thomas Critchell, who's 33 seconds behind him right now. I want to have another look at what happened there, but this battle is so close. Even though David has a black flag, he's not stopping racing.
I think he's at a point now, especially with how close Tom could be. If he doesn't push here, he could end up losing that second place. But if he keeps pushing, he could very well serve this black flag and still keep his position, at least in P2.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've all been a bit surprised here that dries have stayed the right cool with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock. We are looking at 2 more racing laps. And, well, Robin's not too concerned about letting David through here because there's not a chance that he's going to end up with a 40-second lead over the next 2 laps. So he doesn't care. And David is like, well, if I push, I might get in front of Tom.
Yeah, but it's looking like to me, based on the weather radar, we have found ourselves in a pocket of dry, surrounded by extremely dense pockets of rain. So those people that switch to wet tires looks like they're going to suffer really hard in these last 2 minutes.
Yeah, but it is super wet, as you said, or at least for dry tires. In that back half of the lap, you can see the car sliding. You can see the amount of spray that is on the track. Alexander Drake has got involved in a collision there. We'll watch that back after the race has finished. And, wow, Alexander Drake's got himself a black flag as well. That might send him back towards Felix Mexner. All the drama in the back half of this race, all caused a little bit by the rain, but not as much as we thought.
I think you're right. This is probably one of the most surprising races I thought I was going to be tuning into today. Those people that held on and watched to the end of this race are definitely getting quite the show.
Absolutely. The uncertainty over the rain. There's one point where it might not have rained at all, but it's just that light dusting on the track of water that has really upset a good few of our drivers' races here. Now, David, interestingly, is coming in to serve his drive-through penalty. He does not want the 40 seconds, I think because you're going to end up being quicker than 40 seconds by driving through the pit lane here.
I think you're right. And with him being, a 38, 35 second gap from Tom, you might not want to push it close to get that penalty. You're getting yourself really, really close to pushing yourself out of P2 into P3, which, in his position is still a handy amount of points.
But what's happened here, it's Stewart right on the back of Tom Critchell, because Tom Critchell is still on those wets, and Stewart's trying around the outside. Looked like there's a little bit of contact there, and now Tom is at risk of losing that 3rd place. He is going to have to hold on for an entire other lap on wet tyres, while Stewart behind him is on a set of dries on a track that is not ready for wets. And he goes around the outside.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard, especially around a track like this with all these straights. You're on those wet tires on that dry track, and you're really not able to hit those speeds that you were able to on those dries.
Absolutely not. But even more interestingly, David is still in the pit lane, and has he stopped in the pit lane? He has stopped in the pit lane. What, did he get a hold? Maybe he sped on the pit entry as well. But he is well and truly in 4th place in that Pro class, and I think Tom has been saved on the podium here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he ended up getting himself a little stop and go along with that drive-through, which if he did, that means that this black flag will not clear. He's going to have to do the stop and go and the drive-through.
It's just cleared now. I wonder if maybe his penalties added up. But look at this. Tom Critchell is struggling against our AM class leader of Michael Rhodes on those wet tyres. He's been passed by him. He's coming back. But Michael Rhodes on the dries is kind of outdriving him a little bit, apart from in this particular section of the lap, where there's still a bit of rain coming down, and you can see the difference. Tom has pulled away from him by miles in that specific section.
I think it's going to be really interesting. This is definitely not what I expected at the end of this race. I fully expected it to be either a fully wet or a fully dry track, not this, 80-20 split we've got.
Well, we can see that Robin Wist takes the win in this race for the Pro class. He stayed out on dries, and now we're seeing Costa crossing the line, P4 in Pro-Am. And let's have a look. It's Phil Bauer who's next across the line for P5 in Pro-Am, not to be a car that was lapped. Heinrich is coming home in P4 in that AM class, and look, the rain's really coming down now. Everyone just needed it about 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah,
Drake,
it looks like landing right in that pocket of rain helped a lot of drivers and messed up a lot as well.
Drake and Garrett comes home now. Stewart comes home P2 in the Pro class. Michael Rhodes is coming home P1 in the AM class. And Tom Critchell on those wet tyres has come home in P3 in the Pro class. Be interesting to talk to him after the race about that decision to go to wet. Felix Mexner now makes a lovely slide out of the last corner to finish P7, followed by JT Sawyer P2 in the AM class. And then it's Timo Gartner finishing P2. Not a bad result by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly far from the win of last week. And David finishes P4 in the Pro class after all of that drama. Final car still left on track, I believe, to cross the line is Walter in P3 in his first race in the series in that Pro-Am class. And, wow, I think that has certainly been an interesting end to that race.
I don't know that it could have gotten any better than that.
Indeed, and you can see it right in front of the camera now that the rain has come to this track and it might get quite wet as we're dealing with these interviews. But let's first have a little look at the podium for all of our classes. So it's Rowan Wist who takes P1 in our Pro class in the 204 Mercedes, followed behind by Mikey Stewart in the number 7 Lamborghini. Then Thomas Critchell is in P3 in the Porsche. Looking to our Pro-Am class, it's an all-German 1 and 2 with Samuel Garrett and Timo Gartner, followed up by Carsten Walter in P3. And then finally in that AM class, it is Michael Rhodes who makes up the first place, followed by JT Sawyer, and then Andy Keane makes up our final step of the podium. All right, so let's have a little look at the full standings overall there from that race. We had 4 participants in the Pro class. Robin Wist took the win, 32 points, with Mikey R. Stewart 45 seconds behind, takes 25, all important for the championship. Thomas Critchell finished in 3rd place after changing onto those wet compound tyres. He takes 22, and it's David who finishes last in that class, but with the fastest lap, which makes up his 19 to 20. 12-point difference in the championship might prove vital as we come to the final rounds in this season. Looking at the Pro-Am class now, it's Samuel Garrett who takes P1 with 32 points, followed by Timo Gartner, 34 seconds behind. 25 points for him. Our new contender, Carsten Walter, finishes up in P3 with 22 points, 50 seconds behind. Look at the drivers who were a lap down now. It's João Costa on 19. Phil Bauer takes 17. Alexander Drake, a disappointing race for him, takes 16, but gets an extra point for the fastest lap. Felix Mexner and Jeffrey Damon both had disappointing races for them. And indeed, that is not going to go well for them. Having a look at the AM class, it's once again Michael Rhodes who takes the win of this race with the fastest lap, just 16 seconds in front of JT Sawyer and 25 points for JT. Andy Keane makes up our podium, as we just saw, 22 points. Then 2 laps down, but still a finisher, Stefan Heinrichs finishes with 19 points. We've got Garcia and Neves, who finishes with 0 points for not finishing the race. Zach, tell me how you feel after that dramatic ending in Silverstone.
It definitely did not go as I expected, and I think a lot of drivers ended up pretty surprised as well. The drivers that gambled made it through, and there happened to be a lot of black flags that ended up putting a lot of people behind. I'm feeling especially bad for Alex, as it looked like the track was not his best friend today.
Absolutely. Now, before we head off to talk to some of our drivers, I do want to have a look. There are a few different incidents that were happening before that race finished. So let's just have a look at some replays here. we're looking. This was Stefan Heinrich. What happened to him on the wet track? He's coming around here. What happened? Kind of outbrakes himself. Does he go for a spin? No, but I think I know what's coming up, and I think it's going to be a spin as he comes out of this corner. No, he keeps it together, and not much of an incident there, but we did see a crash from Michael Rhodes. Once again, coming up to the start-finish straight. This was an incredibly wet section of the track, and oh, that's a horrible spin for him, right on the curb, and it was treacherous out there, despite everyone who was fastest being on dry tyres. And he got passed by Thomas Critchell. That's how they ended up in a race at the end. And finally, we're going to look at Jeffrey Damon. The track was getting a bit wetter now. And actually, we don't have a replay for whatever incident happened to Jeffrey. So I think that might have been after the race finished. We got something for Andy Keane here. Let's have a look. Oh, that curb. Very wet indeed. And into the gravel. It was very treacherous out there. It just didn't get wet enough for wets. So, if you are leaving us now after finishing the race, I want to thank you very much for joining us. Just as a reminder, we will be back in 2 weeks' time to take on Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. And let me tell you, that is going to be an interesting race indeed. No rain scheduled. However, there is lots of thrills and fun to come along. And we're now going to head over to our interviews. And the first person I would like to speak to, if I can find they are on my display here. I don't think it's going to work, is it? There we go. We are going to speak to the winner of the Pro Class, who's going to be Robin Wilson. Let's just drag him in now. Robin, how is your day going?
Pretty good. I finished a 24-hour race like 5 hours ago. Hopped into practice for this, and now, with some luck, came home with the win.
That is absolutely sensational. It looked like David had it for, a good portion of the race there before getting that black flag. There was a little incident there. Do you think you could have got in without it?
I don't know. I think it would have been close. I felt like I had some advantage on him in the wet conditions. But I guess we'll never know.
Indeed, very interesting out there. I want to talk a bit about the wet conditions, because we were watching the radar here, and we saw the rain approaching quite rapidly, slow down, and then kind of pick up pace again. But then we got a little pocket of dryness in the middle. Did you ever have the thought in that final pit stop that you'd go to wet tires?
When I saw Tom do it initially, I was like, oh, did I pick the wrong tire? But then I just saw him fall further back down, and then at some point it stopped raining in sector 3, and then it was almost fully dry. And then I was just thinking, I'm going to sit this out, see what happens.
Yeah, it was a very interesting situation there. It looked like maybe the kind of back half of the lap round by the old pit straight and Copse looked quite treacherous and difficult, and then the rest of the track was almost dry. Talk a bit about how this feels for the championship. Of course, David has won the previous 2 rounds, but you've been here pretty consistently picking up the points. 3 rounds to go. Any track that you kind of look at and think, yeah, I can be great at that one, or that's not my favorite track?
I do love Le Mans. I've always been strong there, so I'm hoping for a good result there too.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We've got quite a few people to run through this evening, but congratulations to you, and we shall hope to see you in 2 weeks' time on the top step of the podium again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's now talk to our our Pro-Am class winner in Samuel. Let's drag him in here. How are you doing, and how was your race today, sir?
My race went very well. Thank you for asking. I can't believe that I actually pulled this off. P3 overall and P1 in the class is just kind of insane. I didn't expect this because in the chat we had quite a few talks, and Alexander Drake, which should be in the Lamborghini, switched cars, as you could see, and yeah, he did not have the time of his life, let's just say. And in the cooldown room, we all just kind of joked about it because apparently the Lambo just felt kind of bad, but is really, really good. I mean, I didn't spin, which was, I thought it would spin like five times, but it didn't once, and that's really good.
We've seen quite a few different drivers struggle with the Lamborghini this season. A few different spins at Daytona and at the Nürburgring as well. How did it feel out there, kind of as the track got a bit wetter? We were watching up here, and felt maybe that there would be a switch to wets at some point. We just didn't know when, but it looked dries all the way through. Did it feel solid, or was it getting a bit sketchy?
It was getting a little bit sketchy sometimes, especially in the last corner coming down on the straight to the finish line. That was a little bit sketchy. The rear would step out quite often, but yeah, I managed to catch it, and so everything went well.
Wonderful stuff. You are our second new winner of a class today. I'll ask the same question that I just asked to Robin a moment ago. Any tracks coming up that you feel particularly suit the Lamborghini or suit your driving style that you're looking forward to coming up in the season to maybe make a challenge against, I think it's Ian and Timo, who are currently ahead in the championship?
Yeah, definitely. I think Sebring and Le Mans. These two tracks are kind of initially the tracks that I went with. That's why I picked the Lamborghini. I would have picked, I don't know, the McLaren instead, but because there is Le Mans and Sebring on the schedule, I thought I could just pick the Lambo because it's a really good car there, and I'm looking forward to it. But the kind of the barrier between or in front of these two is Spa, and Spa and the Lamborghini is very, very interesting.
Interesting indeed. Well, we'll look forward to that next time out. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you again shortly.
Yep.
All right, and now let's talk to our final race winner of this evening. It's Michael Rhodes, the only repeat winner who joins us today. Mike, how was your race out there?
Oh, that was really, you know what? It was interesting at the start because obviously I was racing against Richard, and then obviously he DNF'd, and then the middle was just keep it on the track, keep it clean, get to the end, and then I was just watching that weather forecast, and yeah, the last little bit of that race was very exciting. I nearly broke the car.
Well, we did see that you went for a little bit of a spin on the old start-finish straight. We were watching from the commentary box, seeing this rain approach at quite some speed and never show up until the last 15 minutes or so. And even then, we ended in kind of a pocket of dryness that meant that the track never really got wet enough for wets. Of course, you took a bit of a different strategy and came in early, if I remember correctly, for a set of tyres. And at the time, I think we were both very confused as to exactly why you'd done that. And you kind of, did you see it not getting wet enough for wets? Did you feel like you made a strategy error after you saw the rain falling? Talk to us a bit about that.
No, it was one of them where I was obviously keeping an eye on the rain, and obviously the rain seemed to be getting delayed every 15 minutes. So when it looked like it was looking to be between the last 15 minutes of the race, I thought I'll pit in now, get on the fresh tires, because hopefully it'll still be dry enough to keep on the dry tires, and obviously hopefully not too difficult if it was to get a little bit more wet. So that was kind of like and it was kind of also to try and force the other two guys behind me to maybe pit in a little bit earlier, so that way that covered. JT didn't. So that was a little bit of a worry near the end. I was like, oh, have I made a mistake here? But yeah, keeping on the track was all right up until 7, 8, and 9. That was the trickiest part of the track, and obviously the wettest part of the track at that point.
That it looked like there was quite a difference riding off board with everyone. It looked like that section of the track was maybe ready for wets, and we saw it in the. You had a bit of a last lap battle with Tom there. We saw it in the pace that in that section of the track it looked like wets were the first faster tyre, but literally everywhere else it was completely dry.
Yeah, that's pretty much spot on, which was not fun, especially when I made that mistake. But yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it was. That section of the track was definitely wet. The rest was solid enough to be on the dries, thankfully.
Well, interesting indeed. Mike Rhodes extends his advantage in the AM Class Championship. Thank you very much for joining us, Mike. We may well be talking to you in 2 weeks' time after you become the victor of Spa, or maybe someone will disrupt your throne.
Hope so. Thank you.
And now the final person I want to talk to this evening is going to be Thomas Critchell, who went for those wet tyres at the end. I'd like to find out a little bit more about that decision. Tom, it didn't look like the race went well for you today.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still on the podium at the end of the day. Of course, unfortunately, there are only 4 entrants in Pro for this race, so it was quite likely to get on the podium. But, I don't know. It didn't go the best it could have. Let's put it that way.
Well, we think you've got a little bit lucky there, because it seems like the only reason you did end up on the podium was David ending up with that black flag at the end. And we think that you might have been battling out of the pits had he not got that.
Yeah, potentially. I think he was far enough ahead, even with the drive-through, to get out ahead of me. The gap was something like 36 seconds, and even if he didn't get me, I was like a solid 15 seconds off the pace or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, I think he would have had me easy.
There was quite a few cars that decided to pit early. You weren't one of them, and at the time we thought you'd maybe made a great strategy call, waiting for the rain and go straight to wets. You went to wets, but it didn't work. Tell me a bit more about how you decided to go on wets.
So it all started like very early on, like keeping my eye on the radar and the sort of percentages that it gives you, sort of chance of rain in the area, for the next 2 hours that you can see on your black box. And the percentages all looked really high. There were no 100%, but they looked high enough to me that I thought we would get rain by the very end. So I tried to fuel save while sort of laying down a good enough pace to just about stick with the front two. Obviously, David was in a bit of a class of his own, but some technical issues meant that he was still there or thereabouts for us. And when the rain started falling with 2 laps to go on my stint, I was buzzing. I was like, I might have done it. This could be the masterstroke. Now, I was going to stay on dries until really last minute, like hanger straight of my in lap, when I saw the rain intensity jump from 7% up to 9.1%, and the track changed from dry to mostly dry. And I was like, right, okay, this is going the right way, with minimal cars on the track and 9% intensity of rain and it only increasing. There's nothing more I could do other than assume it was going to continue being wet. Coming into the pit lane, I still had 19 minutes left as well of the race. So I thought, even if it's not time for wets now, which I was fairly certain it wasn't, I was pretty sure that those dry runners in P1 and P2 were going to really struggle in the last 3 laps. And I thought that's all it would take, just 3 laps of them being 5 to 10 seconds off the pace. Boom, I've got them. So when the rain just decided to stop 2 laps into my stint, I wasn't best pleased, put it that way.
I have to say it was quite the interesting weather situation to watch from up here. We had the rain approach so quickly and then kind of stop and then open up a gap in the middle where there was heavy rain on either side of the circuit, but never actually hit the track.
Absolutely gutted, mate. To finish the race and open the info tab and find the weather and see the path of that rain and what was either side of it was just heartbreaking. I mean, what are you meant to do? It's genuinely without a spotter, and while you're the only driver, as this league is, no one else is running or can run with a spotter or anything like that. What are you meant to do? It's blind luck, really. And all those guys that stayed on dries, fair play to them. They got lucky this time. If it, in 100 other scenarios, to be quite honest, I think I'm probably the winner. So, bit unlucky, but I had a lot of fun. And in those last few laps, I had some brilliant battles with some cars that were clearly miles quicker than me, and I was just trying to hold on to positions just for fun.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It looked like the only place you were really gaining pace was the back half of the lap, where it looked like it was pretty wet indeed. Well, thank you very much for joining us there, Tom. Are you with us for any more rounds of the season coming up?
So I think, unfortunately, I'm missing Le Mans, although it's a pretty difficult track for the Porsche, and I probably would find myself having a chat with Barry R. So maybe that's not so unlucky. But I should be back for maybe the final round and hopefully like round 5 as well. So round 5 and 6, hopefully.
All right. Well, it's Spa up next. If you haven't got yourself...
I've got the wrong way round then. Okay, well, hopefully I can make Spa, because I like Spa.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tom. We hope to speak to you a little bit later in the season.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
Unfortunately, that is all we have time for from our driver interviews today. We spoke to P1 of our Pro class, Robin Wist, P1 from our Pro-Am class, Samuel Garrett, and P1 from our Am class in Michael Rhodes, as well as Tom Critchell, who made that strategy decision to go onto wets at the end there. So just a reminder for you that we are going to be heading next, in 2 weeks' time, over to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. All of our drivers are going to be down to sprint fuel, so quite a few more pit stops in that particular race, before being followed up 1 week later by the 24 Hours of Le Mans circuit, and then finishing up the season early next year in Sebring, before we look forward for the next season of DWREC. Zach, any more closing thoughts from you before we end today?
I think today was an exciting race, and going into Spa, there's going to be, I think, a lot of challengers, and a lot of people are going to be doing a lot more practice. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Everyone loves Spa, of course, with the iconic 24-hour race. That just leaves me to say thank you very much to everyone who has joined us for the broadcast today, or has joined us for the broadcast later on YouTube. As I said, join us in 2 weeks' time for Spa.